My 40 Sports presents Bojangles Friday Night Rivals. The Byrnes Rebels versus the Greer Yellow Jackets.
Just 7 miles separate Byrnes and Greer. They'll be looking for 7 early and often in this rivalry by proximity matchup. We welcome you into Bojangles Friday Night Rivals from Greer, South Carolina, alongside my broadcast partner, Tom Van Hoy. Jason Patterson here. Always a pleasure to have you with us on Bojangles Friday Night Rivals. It is a comfortable night for football. In fact, it's order it up weather here in the upstate of South Carolina. The game already a little chippy. The entrance for Byrnes, something to behold. These two teams live up to the definition of Friday Night Rivals.
Already heating up on somewhat of a cooler night tonight between these two teams. You want to be on that opening kickoff. Going to be a great deal of excitement.
Tom, let's talk a little bit about this matchup. If you haven't seen Byrnes play this year, a number of new faces you'll become acquainted with for a Rebels team with that perennial expectation of reaching Columbia.
Well, they do, and last year they got into the third round before they got beat by Gaffney. New quarterback in Andrew Stevens, but he has a lot of weapons on the outside and a strong offensive line.
Greer has to limit your possessions, and they have to try to control the line of scrimmage, limit the touches for Byrnes tonight.
And they have the right way to do it. They've got 5 offensive linemen returning from a year ago. 3 started as freshmen.
Should be a nice night here, not only weather-wise, but when you look at the matchup between Greer and Byrnes next on Bojangles Friday Night Rivals. Rivals Byrnes and Greer, pair of teams coming off impressive victories a week ago. As we welcome you back to Bojangles Friday Night Rivals. Kickoff literally seconds away. Let's first take a look at our Spartanburg Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram keys to the game.
Yeah, Byrnes protect the ball, turned it over 5 times against Chapman. They want to be balanced on offense. Greer, they need a sustained drive, keep it away from Byrnes, and field position could be key in this game as well.
Talked about a couple of big wins as you get one more glance at the Spartanburg Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram keys to tonight's game between the Rebels and the Jackets. Those wins were as follows: 37-14 over Greenville for Byrnes, 51-0 over Blue Ridge for a Greer squad who traveled just up the road from their impressive new high school to here at one of the premier facilities for football for a long, long time in the state of South Carolina. Generations have traveled into this little spot in the shadow of the water tower in order to see high school football.
Dooley Field, man, it's so cool when you come in here and see the gigantic water tower.
Just about ready, and here is the kickoff, and we're going to have a flag before our You have to wait a little bit to get things started on a night like this with so many eyeballs on you, and we're going to have offsides on the kicking unit for Greer that will force this to be done a second time. A little more face time on television for the special teams members, and there is that trademark water tower displaying the 3A titles won by this Greer squad. Tom, you look at these two teams, and you know every year when these colors are placed on and these jerseys, these coveted jerseys in these communities are worn, it's about a championship.
And it's about a hard-hitting affair, as we saw before the game even began.
Yeah, a little chippy if you weren't with us in the open. The terminology we use, the reason is just getting off the bus and making their way to the locker room, Byrnes and Greer, with some words. And now they settle it beyond words as the return man for the Byrnes Rebels brings it up across the 25. And a little bit of a cut here. Bomar is going to be to the 40, and that is where the Rebs will take over. Well, the Byrnes Rebels are now under the direction of quarterback Andrew Stevens, who is getting ready to lead this unit out on television for the first time this year. Here is the new QB of the Rebels.
Yeah, take it over for Colby Shaw. And Shaw last year, an outstanding player, the son of Reggie Shaw. And so Stevens gets his opportunity, and he's going to get better, I think, as the year goes on. We've seen him mature in the first couple of ball games.
Plenty of weapons in the likes of Brooks, Cook, Evans on the ground, Omar, who you saw a moment ago, Williams, Weaver through the air. The playmakers, as they always seem to, abound for the crew out of Duncan, South Carolina. And the Royal Blue and Gray ready to go to work. Here's the first play from scrimmage for Byrnes. A little toss out. They set up the screen far side. That's good for a first down and then some, all the way on the other side of the field at the 40-yard line. And our initial first Franklin Financial first down of the night for this Byrnes squad.
Yeah, a little toss out. That's what they want to do, get him in space and have a chance to get that first down, and he did.
So already on the Greer side of things, to just outside the 41-yard line, gathering it up, a little bit of volleyball action there required. The athletic ability of Stevens on display as he does gather this up and hand it off. All right, Tom, talked about the likes of Weaver and Bomar and Williams, and also on the ground, Evans and Cook and Brooks, this talented Byrnes team. Give us a sense of what this group that Coach Shaw told us started to come into its own a week ago offensively brings to the table.
Well, I'll tell you what, they're going to rush at 159 and throw it at 200. They're going to be a little bit more balanced, and they're going to try to do things like this, throw it inside and give their skill guys an opportunity to make a big play, and another one there. So they want to do a number of different things, but they're going to maybe do it in a little different way than they did a year ago.
Another first Franklin Financial first down having been secured there. As you do now get a look at the Byrnes starting lineup, here are the Rebels in full.
Yeah, I talked about Stevens and Bomar and Williams and some others along the way, Weaver, but Garrett Hall anchors at left tackle that offensive line, and they think as the season goes on that they are going to be one of the beneficiaries of the success of this football program as they mature as well.
Another flag down. This one going to back the Rebels up just a little bit. So we're just inside the 30-yard line. And, well, say that. They carried the down marker back to the 34, and that's exactly where it's headed now after just a brief pause. So Byrnes is going to be facing a first down at about 15 as you look at the defensive alignment. Bojangles starting lineup for Greer.
Yeah, a couple of sophomores up front, but boy, the linebacker, Darius Johnson, Hunter Free is back there again as well. You move it to the secondary, Anthony Lyons and Tykorian Gist at the cornerback spots. There's some veterans as well. And again, this is still a young team on paper, but they have played, many of them have played since they were freshmen.
Again, coming off a shutout a week ago in that contest against Blue Ridge. This sealed off beautifully and enough of a seam to work inside the 25-yard line for the back for Byrnes. Sagara getting the toss here, and take a look as he weaves his way through.
Yeah, he is a young man that they are exceptionally high on, a freshman who has been outstanding here early on in his short varsity career anyway, and he'll get better and better. You can see him catch the football as well. There he goes.
Near side and not stopped this go round. First touchdown belongs to Byrnes, and it is the youngster who gets the job done. 6 on the board for the Rebels just that quickly.
Well, I'll tell you what, they set it up by the short passes. We talked with Coach Shaw this week. I appreciate his time, and Coach Young as well. They wanted to be able to do that. That sets up what they can do inside. Missed tackle there, and just a youngster. But, man, look at him go the distance there, and an early touchdown for Byrnes.
So a couple of key touches for the freshman running back. And he has the Rebels in the end zone. The extra point from Jacob Coleman is true. And it is 7-0 Byrnes. Well, we talked about 7 miles and early sevens being key. The first of them belonging to Byrnes, and here's how it looked.
They did, up inside, got it blocked, but it was set up by the ability to spread the defense out. And, Coach Young talking with us about his defense, getting better as the season's gone on. But Byrnes, after they lost that game to Chapman, they led 14-0 first quarter and eventually lost 17-14. Coach telling us this week they came back with, a focused, competitive practices before the Greenville game and what they were able to do, 37-14 in that game. And then they come right out, get a great kickoff return, and then able to put together and score.
Name's freshly on the back of that jersey, is it not?
Press on.
And that's something whenever you have your name on the back of one of those jerseys. 11-time state champions. 11 state titles dating from 76 all the way to 11. And this is the 59th meeting between the Rebels and the Jackets, getting started with those 11-time champs. Drawing first blood, 7-0 is the advantage for Byrnes. First meeting between these two teams coming all the way back in 1955. And it took Byrnes a handful of years, 59 the first time the Rebels were able to win one of the head-to-head contests between these two. And in this 2023 edition, it is 7-0 Byrnes, with the fans still settling in good. Return across the 20 to the 27-yard line. And that is where things will be set up for the first time for the Greer Jackets under the direction of Caden Rowland, who is in the heart of that huddle and getting ready to lead the Jackets out onto the field.
Yeah, Rowland at 6'2", 180, a junior, and he had shared a little bit of time with Keaton Platt, a good sophomore at 6'3", 200. But he settled in there a little bit and coming off of 5 performances last time out, 17 out of 25, 188 yards and 2 touchdowns in the win, 51-0 over Blue Ridge.
That win over Blue Ridge coming after the back losses, as Tom told you, Daniel and Hillcrest. So that's certainly the moment that things came together for Greer. In the midst of things, up across the 30 to around the 33-yard line. This will carry for LaDainian Martin. Boy, what a welcome sight it is for them to have LaDainian Martin back on the field.
Yeah, 1,200 yards rushing last year. Had a little bit of a knee injury, as the coach was telling us. You get a look at the offensive star there, and good to see Martin there. Chris Hall moved into the backfield last week and 260-some yards rushing. Young guys led by Eduardo Garcia up front as well, in addition to Caleb Nelson, and they've got some skill guys that we'll hear quite a bit about tonight as well.
There was one of them, Chris Hall, getting the carry. They talked about how well Chris Hall performed in the absence of LaDainian Miller. He stepped up. What a luxury it is as he picks up the initial first Franklin Financial first down for Greer. What a luxury it is to have the two of them on the field together.
Well, yeah, I mean, he slides into the backfield. 18 carries, 261 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So it shows his versatility, but also shows that offensive line able to get it done as well.
First down from just shy of the 40-yard line. Greer's first drive trying to answer a Byrnes touchdown on the Rebels' first touch of the football. And that's got too much air underneath it as he tried to connect out near side in the direction of Gist. And you see what Mr. Cook had to think about that as you look at the entire Byrnes defensive unit. There's the Bojangles starting lineup for the Rebels.
Yeah, the defensive line anchored by Chris Foster there, James Oates, one of the outstanding linebackers as well. You get into the secondary with Tori Weaver and also with Jarius Bomar, two guys that are going to go both ways. Not as many going to go both ways as we've seen in recent games we broadcast, but a couple of outstanding athletes at the corner as well.
Quick whistle before we get started. This for the reset of the play clock. A little bit of an issue with the play clock on the other end of the field. And now that the officials have got that set, we're getting ready at the 9:05 mark. Second down 10 for the Jackets. Running into the right side of that front for Byrnes. As the 40-yard line is crossed over, Mark getting another touch here. Third down coming. Boy, nice crowd turning out tonight to represent both of these tremendous fan bases. High expectations on an evening that can certainly lift your fortunes. So this is one of those wins that whoever secures it tonight, you circle it, you move forward, knowing you've accomplished something with a victory against those colors. Here's a 3rd down and 6, and that's caught. And plenty of running room after the catch for Tykorian Gist, who is into the end zone for the first Greer touchdown of the night. There is an answer for the early Byrnes score. Both teams on the board right out of the gate, making great use of their first opportunity in this rivalry matchup.
I tell you what, we'll get another look at it here. Had time to throw and just got it in there. And then once he got his hands on the ball, he knew what he was able to do to meander his way to the end zone for a touchdown. Great response on a 3rd down play.
Tykorian, just the senior, putting Greer on the board, the extra point just as true. And both teams, there are those early 7s we talked about for the two schools separated by just that many miles. And it's even again between Greer and Byrnes. Bojangles is a proud sponsor of Friday Night Rivals. It's not just football season, it's tailgate season. Head to Bojangles and order your tailgate box today. And tailgate like a legend. It's Bo time. Touchdown strike of just over 60 yards, putting the home team on the board. And the start that both these teams were looking for as they both do work their way into the end zone. We divided it up by 7 tonight. We'll see how many of those are actually secure. It only took 1 touch of the football for both these teams to, in many ways, Tom, carry over the momentum from a week ago.
Well, you wondered how this one would begin with so much emotion, and Byrnes with a good kickoff return. Then they were able to methodically drive it down and use the short passing game to set up about a 30-yard run by the freshman Segura. But I think that's a really big comeback for Greer, given the momentum I think that Byrnes had the momentum on their side, and had stuffed a couple things there, but for them to be able to go over the top, a team that wants to establish the run and to be able to go over the top and get a 62-yard touchdown pass is a big one for Greer.
On 3rd down and 6, no less, to get the job done. It was about a conversion there. How about this? Byrnes going to turn, toss this backward to Weaver, allow him to handle the return, and he's up across the 25. Maybe not as much as Byrnes hoped to get out of that different look on the kick return. But it will be Rebels football just shy of the 30. Why not take it for a spin in the early stages of a game like this?
That may be the longest pass I've seen in this particular circumstance. You see it occasionally, but more laterally than what we saw. There's a pretty nice pass by Bomar, wasn't it?
Well, no question it was a backwards pass from Bomar.
Yes.
That much was sure. And it almost spelled disaster. Had it had a little more air underneath, it could have been trouble. But you saw the leaping ability of Weaver, and both he and Bomar involved on that kick return. This is tossed out near side. Here's Caleb Williams, who's across the 35 and all the way down to the 39-yard line. Byrnes using the screen game in the early going. They do so again to the tune of a first Franklin Financial first down.
Yeah, Brody Diggins able to come over and make first contact there. He's one of the many outstanding linebackers inside at 5'10", 185, junior. And yeah, the perimeter passing game has been very effective early on.
All right, so Bomar and Weaver working together on the kick return, and then you get Williams on the first toss his direction on the new drive. Those are the triple threat wide receiver options for this Byrnes offense under Andrew Stevens.
Well, and a lot of folks, when you talk to them around the area, think that the set of skilled position players for Byrnes is about as good as it gets, and it's been on display relatively early in this ball game so far.
That's the reason when the rankings were released in the preseason, you looked at Upstate options. these guys, Gaffney Indians, who we had earlier in the year, always think about Spartanburg and what the staff does there. I mean, those we'll get into that conversation as we get deeper into the night. But this Byrnes team was right there near the head of the class when they talked about who could be the threat to emerge from the Upstate in the 5A ranks this year. Much of the question marks about how much contributions would be there from the new faces like Stevens, who takes the snap here. And he's going to show his arm strength off, but tangled up with the defensive secondary, and the flag's coming to the delight of Armani Weaver, as this is no doubt going to be interference, and it may not have been a bad one when all was said and done, Tom. Had he stuck in behind him here, this ball was on target.
Yeah, Brock Diggins, I think, there, and they go down, you see him collide, and then, it's not the point of the foul. It's going to be from the line of scrimmage, so sometimes that's not a bad thing to do. They were stride for stride there, just missed him, but that sets it up when they've thrown it out on the edge, and we also set up a Segura's run for the touchdown as well to take a shot deep, had one-on-one coverage there, just missed him, but got the flag.
If you missed it when we talked about it earlier, he's got the new quarterback, obviously the family name familiar in recent editions of this program. Coach Shaw has a new running back. He has the new threats at the receiving position, the skill positions, and he said it. These are his words. Last week they hit their stride.
Yeah, they played well, and they needed to after they had lost that game at Chapman, led 14-0 early in the first quarter and got beat, came back and played well.
Just tossed to the middle of that Greer logo, and everything stacked up a yard beyond the line of scrimmage. It's going to be second down and about 9. And there is his counterpart, Will Young. Took over here in 2005. He's already placed a number of decades under the belt in the coaching ranks, and every year at Greer he has patrolled that sideline. And again, you think about how good the line play has been for the Greer Jackets and how much success that has parlayed itself into under his leadership.
Yeah, out of Daniel High School, and played at Clemson, was an all-ACC offensive lineman.
Across the 35, inside it to the 32-yard line, as Byrnes opts to work to Bomar this time. Yeah, you talk about the threats that are there for Byrnes and a team hitting a stride. Sometimes you need the type of wake-up call they received in that Chapman game. It certainly appeared to be the case with the way they bounced back a year ago, or a week ago, I should say, and the first Franklin Financial first down here, as the Rebels still on the march in their second drive of the game. Handed off one more time to Segura, who had the early touchdown run, and he's good for a handful more. There is a look at the head man for the Rebels. Hard to believe how long the time clicks off so quickly. Both these coaches have been on their respective sidelines, and of course the connections run thick.
Well, I'll tell you what, and both are our football guys, and we had a great chance to visit with them this week, and gave us a perspective on their teams, but both highly successful.
Segura again makes a man miss, and that's going to mean a first down. Another first Franklin Financial movement of the chains, and every bit of that, the yards after the catch ability from the young back.
Yeah, throw it out on the edge there, and you plant your foot and make a cut. And I thought, first off, I thought it was pretty good to force him back inside, but then he was able to make that cut and maneuver and pick up a good gain again before the gang tackling occurred, but it doesn't occur until to the secondary.
5:40 and ticking downward to go in the opening period. This is the second touch for Byrnes. Both teams scored on their first. And a little spin move, plenty of room down the sideline, and it is another touchdown for Byrnes. This one of just outside the red zone fame, and the same number called, the same result on this rush after the catch, a little toss. So, technically the work he did on this drive came as passing plays and out of the passing department, but it's the rushing ability, the yards after catch ability, the speed, and the absolute run skills that exist for the youngster, Tom, that's on display.
Tackling in space was also one that both coaches talked about it, and he's a tough young man, only a freshman to be able to bring down.
A couple of touchdowns his direction. As a result, the Rebels have the two full sevens on the board for a 14-6 lead. The work done by young Trey Segura thus far. Don't let game night dinner get you stressed. Stop by Ingles for great choices from the Ingles Deli. Rotisserie chicken, fresh made salads, a delicious hot bar, and sub bar. It's dinner and a snap, then off to the game. Ingles, low prices, love the savings. Well, it's already been a busy night for those on the defensive side of the football, and certainly all the technology put to use by these offenses as well. 3 touches of the football between these two teams and a trio of touchdowns on the board.
Yeah, somebody's got to stop somebody at one point, right? You know, I mean, you've seen that shot there. Good shot. The technologies you mentioned, you know, we've come a long way since back in the day when you take a Polaroid picture and then the song came "Shake It Like a Polaroid" on the sideline to see what they were lining up like from an offensive and defensive standpoint. So they work it hard during the games.
Yeah, development time, not really an issue anymore. You're able to have those real-time in-game adjustments that used to simply be the thing of dreams. I remember back to something in the first quarter is not a conversation you have to have anymore. It's let's go back and look at that play from the first quarter.
What do you think you're doing?
5.5 remain in the opening period of action. And I think we may say this more than once tonight, but Greer's turn now with the football. And stumbling as he tries to bring this back to near the 30-yard line when all is said and done is the return man. There's Greer. There's Max Hannon and company there. And here comes Caden Rowland one more time. We'll see what he can do the second time around. Payoff came on a 3rd down as he connected for the 60-plus yard touchdown toss on Greer's first drive. This time gives off, and across the 30 is Martin. And he's good for a handful on first down.
Yeah, Coach Young told us they still want to be a run-first team, but they need to be balanced offensively, need to throw it down the field a little bit, and we saw that successfully to Tykorian Gist of some 62 yards. He had 3 catches for 30 yards and 1 touchdown coming in, but if you can be able to run the football, particularly get some yards on first down, only got 2 that time.
Stoppage as the officials work their way in. And Greer coming almost all the way to the near side to discuss things while the crew sorts this out.
We talked about the game last week and beat Blue Ridge 51-0. Boy, played Daniel, 48-20 loss at Hillcrest. Hillcrest, probably one of the best teams they had, 40-21. So much needed last week to have that confidence on the offensive side against Blue Ridge.
Trips to the far side as there's a load of wide receivers in this package and trying to come up the home sideline to Anthony Lyons, but this is incomplete. Flags fall nonetheless. And it may be an interference penalty the other direction. We saw that
y'all know what you need to do.
Called against the Jackets a little bit earlier. And this is going to go against Byrnes, same infraction. So getting ready to walk it off and put Greer a little closer to midfield.
Yeah, just one-on-one coverage up the sideline. Bomar was there. And then the flag went down. And Greer able to be the beneficiary of that call. Let's see if we get a look at it. Must have made contact a little bit before.
Well, you thought with the pass caught well out of bounds there, you wondered, and then here came the flags, and here comes LaDainian Martin. He's got a first down and a little bit more as he has enough to move the chains with a First Franklin Financial fresh set.
Yeah, we talked about Martin. He's considered one of the top running backs in the Upstate. 6'1", 185, a junior, 15 carries, 155 yards, 3 touchdowns in his first game of the year. He's missed the last couple of ball games, but had 1,200 yards rushing last year. So we've got a couple of really fine running backs in this game tonight.
Chris Hall once again getting the call. Hall inside the 40.
A little more methodical on this drive now, moving the chains and working into Byrnes territory as opposed to the third and the long big play. Here's a look at Hall, and trying to provide the blocking was Martin that time.
Yeah, he cut across. He did a good job, but the penetration was just so good that there wasn't anywhere to go. And, put the hat on the ball there, and it popped out and falling on top of the football there. One of the up front offensive linemen.
Blake Taylor actually getting on top of that when all was said and done. Taylor saving the drive, saving the moment. Here's a deep threat that will fall incomplete. A little too strong for a connection with Anthony Lyons, who was the intended target once more. Have called the wide receiver DB's name a couple of times, one of the senior targets, and you see just how much air was under this, and the only player in the vicinity, one you're familiar with already from a scoring standpoint on the Byrnes side.
Yeah, you're going to see a couple guys on both sides that are wide receivers and D-backs that are probably going to go against one another quite a bit tonight, and those really good matchups on the edge.
3rd down 9. A little bit of traffic being directed by Caden Rowland, and he is not going to move forward with this play. The Greer coaching staff a bit beside themselves as everybody comes toward the sideline. Timeout being taken. Your impressions of what we've seen so far in the early going?
Well, up and down we go. And Byrnes came out and had the good kickoff return and then able to use the short passing game to set some things up. And then the young freshman, Segura, had the long run of 30 yards or so for the touchdown. And, I thought it was important for Greer to be able to come back. And maybe more importantly, they were able to do it via the pass with a 62-yard touchdown throw to Gist from Caden Rowland. But that came the Byrnes Rebels again on their side of the football, moving it up and down right now, and they were able to utilize the long passing game and then able to get it to the young man against the Greer for the touchdown. So it's been all offense so far in this one, and both teams kind of predicate themselves to a certain extent on the ability to play outstanding defense. But so far it's been entertaining and an offensive show so far. But I think that's a good time out. It's a 3rd down 9, and look where you are right now. You want to make sure you're on the right page, and you may not get it all, but you may get enough to where you might go for it on 4th down.
Tossed underneath once more. Martin inside the 40 and back near the line of scrimmage is about all. And here all of a sudden is a Byrnes team stiffening on this drive, threatening what would be the first stop of the night on either side. 4th down coming.
I'll tell you, watch Drayson here, and he's going to put Evans and make the play. They had it set up. He had some blockers out in front of him, but that young man, Evans, able to negotiate himself around and get to a certain place to be able to make that tackle and kind of thwart that play.
Back inside his own territory at the 47-yard line. Right-footed punch of the football from Brody Runyon. And that will be out of bounds at right around the 10, and that comes with just under 3 minutes to play. So the first stop of the night does belong to the Rebels of Byrnes. They threw out a Duncan, stiffening just on their side of midfield.
Yeah, good defensive play by Evans there. Had it set up on the screen play, but he made 2 nice plays during the course of that action to be able to bring up a long situation there and punt the football. But we talked with Coach Young in pregame and earlier this week. One of the keys was field position as well. Okay, you didn't get any points, but you're going to make them go a long way here. And let's see what your defense can do. So far, Byrnes has been very good on the offensive side.
Couple of touches, couple of scores for Andrew Stevens and company. Just worked across the 10 to around the 13-yard line. That's about all. And progress ultimately brought to a halt. There's Landrum filling up your screen. You can see Brooks as a part of things. And talk about filling up your screen. How about Isaiah McCoy in the thick of that Greer D?
Yeah, on cue. Good call. 6'3", 280 junior. Big guy. And he's flanked by a couple of sophomores. Aiden Jones, 5'11", 250, and Peyton Armstrong. They really like those young players, 6'4", 225. Both are young sophomores up front as well, along with McCoy.
Another extended stoppage before the next play on the Byrnes drive. Flag picked up on the far side As the Rebels get set to work from the sticks, here's an explanation from our crew. You see Will Young up and down the home side. His team just turned aside in Byrnes territory. And his counterpart on the other side. Boy, so much back and forth early after touchdowns for each of their offenses to begin things. The extra point ultimately deemed untrue on the Greer side. Things have been true on the Byrnes side, as is this toss up across the 40 when all is said and done. On the catch made for Byrnes, and Caleb Williams once again getting his number called. But once more, it looks as if this is going to be for naught.
Yeah, it looked like maybe a hold there we saw, but the key there was the ability that to have time to throw the football. Maybe some of that had to do with the holding penalty, of course, but able to let that route develop. And Stephen put it right on the money.
Less than smooth start to this particular drive after forcing the turnover and the punt. Byrnes backed up a little further here as the 5-yard line. Closest location to that which the Rebels are ready to work from. Into the thick of traffic and up near the 9 perhaps. As the clock winds toward 2 minutes to play, once more Isaiah McCoy right in the middle of things.
Yeah, big guy up in front there, a team that's given up 187 rush. You see it again, 91 pass, 279 total in the first 3 games, 29.7 points per game they allowed. Now, we'll get into this with both teams throughout the course of the broadcast, but the quality of competition, non-conference for both these teams, not only will be prepared for region play, but hopefully for postseason play as well.
Too tall, this delivery in the direction of Zy Landrum, and incomplete. That'll stop things with 99 seconds remaining in the opening period.
Boy, I love the names, Jason, on the back of the jerseys, don't you? We don't have any excuse now.
Byrnes trotting to the far side. Certainly, you're right, helping us out. Doesn't always seal things together for us,
Well,
does
no,
it? But it certainly
helps.
It is a drive that will pass by quickly for Byrnes, is working from shadow of their own goal line. Rebels are set to punch this away. Greer should get it back with very nice field position. In fact, the return man is standing at the 35-yard line at the moment. And this kick going to take a big-time bounce and into Greer territory at the 43. Well, you saw the return way up there, making sure that things were going to go as they seemed for Greer, but this takes a major Byrnes bounce, great punt, and works out nicely for the Rebels to help flip the field to some degree.
Now, when you said he was at the 35, I thought that's pretty short, pretty close, because that's the last thing you wanted to do. You want to be able to come up and make the catch, fair catch, because it's an oblong ball, and we saw what could happen. It went over his head, and then it went up another 15 yards or so.
Well, in that case, it's almost 25 yards difference when all is said and done from where he was hoping to catch the football and where the quarterback will be standing inside his own 40 to receive this snap. And getting a good chunk of that back is Martin. He's into Byrnes territory at the 45, and on one touch by LaDainian Martin, it is a first down brought to you by First Franklin Financial, and it is into Byrnes territory.
That's what you're looking for if you're Greer, the ability to get big yardage on first down, and that'll set up some other things a little bit later on. Chris Foster, their outstanding defensive end, able to make the tackle at the end of that run.
And we'll see what Greer opts to do with the First Franklin Financial first down again. Inside a minute and a half remaining in the opening period. Martin again, and he's right back where that first carry landed him on the 45, maybe just inside it, as we are getting ready to go inside a minute remaining in the first period. I got to ask you, Tom, your impressions of what we've seen in the first quarter of this contest
thus far.
It's been
entertaining so far. We've seen a lot of variation for Byrnes offensively. Greer settling in. I think if they can establish the running game a little bit, we've seen them be successful with the pass over the top. So, forced a punt by both teams on the last 2 possessions. So I think settling in a little bit here at the end of the first.
Greer hoping to hang around in this contest, doing so at least for now in the first quarter. The Jackets trying to match Byrnes with this their second drive of the game. They go to Martin one more time, who's going to work his way to around the 42 and a 3rd down, and they're going to call it around 7 coming as the closing seconds tick down here in the first. We'll see if Greer opts to talk about this 3rd down play during the quarter break. They certainly have that luxury with 13 on the play clock and far less than that on the game clock. It appears as if the Jackets are going to be content to let the first quarter expire. It is a first quarter that will see the Byrnes Rebels score on both of their initial possessions. Both teams did that on their first touch, and you add it all up, it's 14-6 after 1 in Greer. Well, 1 quarter in the books. Gorgeous sky on a delightful night in the upstate of South Carolina, and some engaging football for you. In fact, both teams able to make use of their first touch of the ball. A couple of touchdowns between them, and then, of course, a second for the Rebels, the difference maker a moment ago, as you see Greer's first moment of pay dirt. And it was the youngster, the freshman, getting the job done on both touchdowns for Byrnes. And what a difference maker he has been so far, Tom.
How about a young guy in Segura? I mean, we've seen and heard a lot about that young guy, and also his great Celadanian back into the game. Martin, young man as well. So it's been a fun one through 1.
Well, you saw the Asheville Chevy Show designation up in the top left corner. We do remind you to stick around at the intermission. We'll have those highlights and a whole lot more for you. You'll learn about both of these schools and programs, all part of the Asheville Chevy Show at the half. And dropping back, firing this, and working it across is Caden Rowland. And that's going to be just complete far side to get the second quarter underway.
Well, I'll tell you, Rowland was 29 out of 44, coming in for 268, 3 touchdowns and an interception. It doesn't run the ball that much, 17 for 45, but against Blue Ridge, he hit 17 out of 25 for 188 and 2 touchdowns. So coming off a nice performance against Blue Ridge. That's when you have to hit right there, though. Good down and out pattern, and just got away from him a bit.
Second quarter just underway. Byrnes getting set to get the football back. That's a danger zone, and deciding not to have anything to do with it is Ramani Weaver. And it will be Byrnes football inside their own 10. They're going to spot this at around the 7-yard line. So second drive in a row, Tom, that the Rebels are going to be backed up deep in their own territory here.
Yeah, one of the keys, Coach Young told us, was field position, and it started with a good kickoff return for the 40, got a touchdown, 27-yard line, put together a 73-yard drive for a score, and then started with the 10-yard line, forced a punt, ball hit, got about another, 15, 20 yards or so, but able to pick up at least one first down, move it a little bit, and then pin them back deep. And this is what part of the process of what Coach Young thought his team needed to do against Byrnes to be successful, is to make them go long distance.
So far, so good to that end. But out of the first tackle and still on the move is Segura up across the 20 to the 25. And his numbers climbing in the first half of this football game. A couple of touchdowns to the credit of Trey Segura, and now another tremendous run for Byrnes when it looked like he was down behind the line of scrimmage.
I mean, had a great chance to knock him down, and it didn't happen that time. And that's Darius Johnson, and Johnson is their leading tackler coming in at 5'10", 220, and a senior with 33. He is tough. I mean, low center of gravity.
And another First Franklin Financial first down that he snatches away there. They fake the give to him this time, and there is a wide open Caleb Williams. Split the seam and is finally shoved out of bounds at the 20-yard line of the Jackets. And when you can do what you're able to establish on the ground, when you can do both on the ground and through the skies what this Byrnes offense can do, it becomes lethal. There's Williams, and he's got a whole bunch more for Byrnes.
Yeah, you've got a running back going across the formation. So, your eyes of the linebacker, and then just ran the pass play down the line. Blocked well. We've seen the plays out on the edge. And Coach Shaw telling us this week, too, that one of the things they wanted to do was have the explosive plays on the perimeter, but that'll open some things up right there.
Yeah, check and check on those two fronts right now. And, boy, I'll go back to it, Tom. The 1-2 punch of what Segura provides you on the ground, and then all these playmakers at the wide receiver position, the latest of which is Caleb Williams getting the toss here, really forces you, if you're Greer, to be honest in every area defensively.
And you got to be honest defensively. I mean, because if you sell out one way or the other, and then when you have a chance to make a play like they did a moment ago, and you give the young man Segura credit for what he was able to do, and when you have that opportunity, you need to make those plays. But, Stevens is a young guy that he is, relatively young from an experience standpoint. He is a senior. And Caleb Shaw last year, they were 67% pass. And, of course, Coach Shaw and his son, Colby. And they beat Greer last year 23-14. And that was Coach Shaw's 100th.
The 100th, the century mark. By the way, you want to talk about round numbers, the 100th win. 2000 the year, the last time that Greer was on the top side of one of these when you talk about the history between these two programs. So it's been a while. You talked about how competitive it was, but it was a marquee win for him. And it's already a marquee night for Trey Segura. He is in the end zone a third time, the hat trick for the young Byrnes back to make it 26 Rebels early second period.
Well, that's an impressive drive. Starting back at the 7-yard line.
An impressive drive that is bookended by none other than Trey Segura.
Yep. Young man we mentioned is a freshman and has opened a lot of eyes early in the season, and even more tonight with the television exposure he's getting this evening.
Well, they walked off the bus, and we were walking with Byrnes as they came off the bus. Of course, trailed Greer off their bus as well a little bit earlier today just to visit with some of the players and coaches. And they said, yep, that's right, we're on TV tonight. You think these players don't know it? Shining in prime time. The youngster Trey Segura, he and the Rebels up 21-6. Matching his jersey number in the first half. Well, the Smile Cam tonight coming your way thanks to Nth Degree Orthodontics. Our Smile Cam showing you some of the friendly faces from Greer, South Carolina. And, of course, they're here. And full force on both sides, as these fan bases have turned out for a game that always marked as a rivalry game. We talked about the outcomes maybe trending one direction in recent decades, but certainly they get up for this game, and they'll look no further than some of the chatter prior to the contest to prove that. Here's Byrnes taking a look at another successful drive. Tom, got to ask you, how long does it take the Rebels to go 93 yards?
Well, I'll tell you what, you figure you're pretty good shape now at the 7-yard line. You get a hit and running back in the backfield. He gets about 20. That's a little 93-yard drive in 45 seconds. So the big pass play as well set some things up there. So well done. Under a minute.
Under a minute, that last drive for Byrnes. And the Rebels, a trio of touchdowns. He's appropriately named, right? Trey.
Yes.
And he also wears the proper jersey number for where we sit. 21 points and 3 touchdowns for Trey wearing jersey number 21. He has certainly been the catalyst for the Rebels, has Trey Segura, the freshman. Yeah, if they're going to name you Trey, 3 scores right out of the gate, that'll get the job done. And again, wearing the right number thus far as well, though I think he'd probably like to score more than what's on the jersey tonight. And this is going to be a big lick at the 40-yard line. Just how physical do you expect this game to be as we get this big lick from James Oates? This was pregame when the two teams came together just to top the G.
Yeah, it was heated early on, and they kind of got after one another. And like I said, they're only seven miles apart. There were a little talking going on prior to the game, but cooler heads prevailed. Coaches stepped in there, and they're emotional young men, and this is a reason they call it Friday Night Rival.
We had to retape the open. Broke out behind us as the teams were warming up, and both coaches, to their credit, in there quickly to try to get their young men focused on the task at hand.
Thought they were trying to get at us.
Separate those that were wanting to make a little more of the extracurricular activity before tonight's game. But again, sometimes the emotion is going to bubble over on you. It speaks to just what a night like this means to these two schools and these two fan bases, and certainly those who wear the colors. Timeout at the 10:58 mark. Boy, are they having fun down below. You saw it with the nth degree smile cam just a little bit ago, and you're going to see it throughout the night. And Tom, a player, as we were walking through some of that pregame stuff, just a little bit shaken up a moment ago, we talked about the really big hit that was delivered by James Oates of Byrnes. And here was the aftermath of that.
Comes in there, and, there's a form tackle right there. I don't know. He looked like he popped right out. Maybe it was somewhere else along the
Well, we saw him
area.
pop up and trot away, but during, as we said, we were showing you some of those pregame festivities, you might call them. You look down, and they were tending to, the training staff tending to the young man. But again, good news is everybody continuing here, including Oates, who is right in the thick of things on this next play at the 10:45 mark.
Yeah, he's another one of the outstanding players, an outside linebacker, as a senior. And when we visited earlier this week with Coach Shaw about some young men that might have an opportunity at the next level, he was a young man that he pointed out.
And it's picked. There is Armani Weaver, and he will be untouched to the end zone for Byrnes. Another touchdown for the Rebels. The first belonging to somebody besides Segura, and the first belonging to the Byrnes defense. As this defense flying around all over the place, coming into its own as well. And also with 6 to show for their efforts now, thanks to the work of Armani Weaver.
Play action there. He jumped the route. And once he caught it, you knew what the end result was going to be. A little 40-yard jump there.
Number 2, a two-way player, as you see him on the offensive side as well for this Byrnes squad. And the extra point, just as true as the first 3 for Jacob Coleman, and makes it a 28-0 lead for Byrnes. Now a defensive moment of impact for the visiting Rebels.
Friday Night Rivals is brought to you in part by Carolina Furniture Concepts. Over $5 million of furniture in stock, ready to deliver to you. Visit their Arden and Waynesville showrooms or go to carolinafurnitureconcepts.com. Well, Tom, here is one more glance at the defensive touchdown. Beautiful placement by Armani Weaver. And he found the gear he needed for the touchdown after the interception, right at 40 yards on the interception return, a pick six for Weaver.
Yeah, good job there. Defensively read it and cut in front. He knows what to do with it offensively and defensively, and he takes it the distance there for the touchdown. So the Rebels with 3 touchdowns from Segura, and now you get one on defense. And Coach Shaw talking about it's a defense that he really, really likes and thinks has got a chance to be an outstanding one this year. And it was in it, but it's right there.
Traveling toward the end zone, nothing new for Armani Weaver. And we're going to work away from this as the Jackets and Caden Rowland go back to work. 28 points on the board for Byrnes right now. The last win for Greer, we were kind of referencing it earlier in this series coming in 2000. It was 28-27 in the thriller. They're going to need more than that tonight as Byrnes has already posted 28 points here in the first half. And I told you Will Young came on board in 2005, so you do the math. In his 18 years, the way things have gone in this rivalry series against Byrnes. Greer owning the early days of this rivalry, but you got to go back to the 50, 60-12, the opener. Greer the winner in that one. We said it'd take a few years for Byrnes to get warmed up in this rivalry, but they certainly have been dominant of late. And so far, Tom, you have to say, this is a Byrnes team that's been dominant in this one tonight.
Well, I tell you what, they bounced back nicely last week against a really good Greenville team that has played a very tough non-conference schedule as well. There was an injury on Greenville early, but nonetheless, it didn't take away from what Byrnes was able to accomplish. Is, they decided they got to focus on themselves after that tough loss. And, every game is important, and they've come out and played hard here and effectively in the first half.
First Franklin Financial first down run as Caden Rowland hands this off. Ball rattled around in there near the 34-yard line. And it looks as if the Jackets were able to get back on top of it. Oates right there in the heart of it again.
You're talking about the last time Greer had won, and there weren't a lot of teams that beat Byrnes from 02 to 11, right? They won 8 championships during that time. The ball popped out of there, and Oates tried to dive on it there.
But again, they leave that with the Jackets when all was said and done. The determination that the ball would stay with Greer. You saw the replay there. It ends up hanging with the Jackets, and Chris Hall carries it around the right side. And Greer, a beneficiary of that ultimate call by the referees, and let's see if the Jackets can turn that into something on a impact run by Chris Hall here.
Well, it becomes a huge possession. I mean, I thought it was after it was 21, and then the interception changed that dynamic, and now at 28-6 at 9:03, this becomes a very important drive for this Greer Jacket team.
Dodged a bullet a little bit there a moment ago on what had the potential to be a takeaway for Byrnes. Right after the interception, a fumble could have been a little demoralizing for sure, and instead it stays with Greer, and right into the pile it goes, up across the 35 to the 37. That ended up being a loss of a yard, maybe 2, and you said it, an important drive, and it makes this a critical 3rd and 4.
See Chris Foster there again. He's a young man that's well regarded, and he was able to get off that block and help make that tackle.
Rolling this way, and there's another interception. This one going to belong to Bomar. Bomar running with a little help inside the 30, and he is down at the 28-yard line. So the fumble that was not, only to see a few plays later, a second interception in as many drives. This one snatched out of the sky by Bomar right after Weaver's pick 6. So those two who work together on both sides of the football, Tom, doing so defensively here.
Yeah, you get a look at that. He's able to cut it in front, and he knows what to do with it after he catches it. Talked about his ability on the offensive side, and Weaver had one, and now he gets another, just almost over.
Caromed off of Livingston. Livingston had his shot at it. He'll say maybe that pick should have been mine. Instead, it caroms off to Bomar, who has the interception for Byrnes. 5 wides for the Rebels, as Andrew Stevens goes back at it from inside the 30, and this is going to be against Byrnes at the 8-11 mark. Boy, Byrnes a chance to really put some separation on the board right now after back-to-back takeaways. He happens to love the way his defense is playing right now, does Coach Shaw.
Yeah, in his 7th year, and you know the background, long time back, but most recently with Bobby Bentley and then Chris Miller, and Miller goes over to Spartanburg, wins the state championship there. Brian Lane comes in, Reggie Shaw, and getting them back to where they were for a long, long time.
Yeah, you talk about all those titles, latest region 18. So you're talking about a little bit of for Byrnes, a hungry Byrnes fan base, a little bit of a gap, knocking on the door a year ago, and now in position to build on that with so many young faces that Will Young and his staff are trying to solve, something staffs all around the Upstate and perhaps beyond in the state of South Carolina before the year is done will have to solve when you talk about this Byrne Rebels group for a while here in 2023. Up 28-6 and looking for more. The second down play coming from just outside the red zone. Now inside that red zone and working inside the 15-yard line after making the catch. And boy, so many different weapons. Here is Mr. Brooks, Talik Brooks, making the catch here.
And got it out of his hands very quickly. The missed tackle there, and Diggins eventually, Brody will make the tackle there.
First bank red zone chance. Much of the Byrne scoring coming from outside the red zone, but here they set up shop in the first bank red zone. 21 locations across western North Carolina, 5 locations in the upstate of South Carolina alone. 21 total between both states to serve you. Sponsors of our red zone. It'll be a brief trip into the red zone for the Rebels of Byrnes as they will tack on another touchdown. And Byrnes just showing you how many different playmakers there are. Adonis Edwards going to be greeted as he works his way back across to that Byrnes sidelines. A junior wideout who's the latest to find pay dirt at Greer in this first half.
They have done it all in many different ways here in the first half. On the ground, they set some things up there. They've done it defensively as well with a couple of interceptions. That set up a short drive there, and then new young man gets in there, and he's able to provide a touchdown as well. And Byrnes has really opened this one up in a hurry after it was a 7-6 ball game.
Yeah, both teams scored on their opening possession. And it has been all Byrnes Rebels since, and Adonis Edwards, the latest to find the end zone for the visiting crew. The Ingalls Markets Field Goal Challenge. For every field goal scored in tonight's game, Ingalls will be donating $100 to the Boys and Girls Clubs of South Carolina. Good luck to all the athletes and teams playing tonight from Ingalls Markets, where your savings say something. Field goals tonight coming in the extra point variety. Still looking for that first Ingalls Field Goal Challenge. Keep an eye on this one tonight to see if and when the Ingalls Field Goal Challenge will be in effect. But one thing for sure, Jacob Coleman has been busy in the extra point department. Now
punching his 5th through off of the latest Byrnes touchdown. And Tom, the weapons seem endless as now Adonis Edwards gets his name on the score sheet for Byrnes.
Just running one right after the other into the ball game there. But you mentioned Jacob Coleman, and when we talked with Coach Shaw as well, kind of discussing offense, defense, and special teams, and he's another young man that is going to be instrumental in the success that they have this year.
Only 35-6 lead for the Byrnes Rebels. Still 7 minutes remaining in the first half. So if you're Greer right now, Tom, a whole lot of football left between here and the end of the journey on this night. And the last 2 possessions, something the Jackets would like to forget quickly. As you see, Rowland remaining near side. As to the quarterback position for Greer, he is going to be the 10th grader Platt, and he will give this off up across the 25-yard line. A little bit of room being made for Martin this time. So going to, again, Platt, the 10th grade QB, as you get a look at Keaton Platt, who takes over at the field general's position.
Now, the one thing we talked about was with Greer, they needed to sustain some drives to try to keep it away from Byrnes, because we have seen tonight that they can score in a hurry.
And trying to get away is Platt. He's going to be covered up. Just too many of those white Byrnes jerseys there. And behind the sticks on another 3rd down. This one going to be 3rd and 11 with 6:11 and ticking to play in the first half.
Yeah, the initial contact by linebacker Antoine Harris, who was able to get in there. Pretty good gain on 1st down, but now you're back behind the chains a little bit here. Big 3rd down play because still 6 minutes to go.
You see the combo of Martin and Platt, who occupy the backfield for Greer. Not much time for Platt. Rush to the other side. Still in pursuit on that far side was Foster, and Platt eventually corralled by a host of Byrnes Rebels inside the 10-yard line, and 4th down and a mile coming for Greer now.
They had started with good penetration up front to begin with, and then downfield, nothing there available. Maybe could have dumped it off there very quickly to Martin, but once you're on the run and Foster again forcing him back inside, and then he got back up and helped make the play there as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. Chris Foster was the one who kind of initiated his rush out of the pocket to the far side, and then also ends up being the player that gathers him up in the end. Josh Lee, a quick glance ahead of Weaver, who is standing back at around the 45. He'll retreat to the 49, where he puts his foot in the ground and takes off, trying to find the corner, and does. He's to the 30, cuts inside, and all the way to the red zone to set things up for Byrnes. Another highlight for Armani Weaver. There is a flag down. In fact, there are a couple of them down just inside the 30 toward the far side of the field. So this may negate Weaver's return.
But dangerous at all 3 elements of the game. You see the return game there. I mean, going to come back, but the potential is there. We saw the kickoff return by Bolmar.
Confidence with which he starts this, with Greer bearing down on him, just shows you what kind of young man Armani Weaver is. Again, had the pick 6 a little bit earlier. We've called his name on the offensive side. You said it, just completed the trifecta with this return, even if it will be turned aside, and Byrnes will set up shop at the 44 following the penalty. Still 5 minutes to take for a spin here.
A little contact there.
A little extra at the end of things. It's the first down play. Standing right on that Greer logo before tossing this near side. Jackets swarm, and on this occasion are able to trap the ball carrier quickly. Nowhere for Zy Landrum to go.
Well, there's so many variations offensively. We saw early on, pitch it out to the edge, take it up the sideline. This is a little bubble screen back inside, and so many things you have to defend. And on top of that, when you can run the ball between the tackles, it's very difficult to defend all of those options that Byrnes has. And they're hitting on all cylinders here tonight.
Second down from behind the sticks. It's a good first down play for this Greer defense. A little pressure coming from the backside, able to dump that off to Kenai Cook, the senior making the catch. That is not going to get Byrnes back to the original line of scrimmage, and third down from behind the sticks for the Rebels. So here's an adjustment for Greer defensively. The question is, can the Jackets get off the field?
Brody Rundy made a nice play there. The outside linebacker, 6'3", 225 junior, and sometimes the difficulty of making a tackle in space, and he's able to get him on the ground.
The Greer defense answering the call with the Jackets down 35-6. Pocket holds for Stevens, who fires this deep, but too much arm strength for Stevens on this occasion as he tried to find Bomar down the far side hash. There's a flag down just at the base of that Greer logo at around the 46-yard line. So what was going to be 4th and 12 may be adjusted by this latest call. And our officials sorting this out. We mentioned that the pocket held, and the reason for that is going to be the holding call that is to follow. Anytime you see the flag right there, you're pretty sure that's what's coming. You just wait for the official word, and that's the case. Decision time on what would be 4th and 11 anyway. And our officials still sorting this out as Will Young is out there. Coach Shaw getting confirmation in his own right.
Here's incomplete pass. You get to look at it. Bomar matched up. How about this matchup? Gist, who had a 62-yard reception himself for a touchdown.
Saw that on the right side of your screen. And here's the official word of holding. You thought it would be declined by the Jackets, as they would have the third from behind the sticks anyway. And it was looks like there was something else at the end of that, Tom. Personal fouls that came on the backside. Well, you wondered why a potential holding call had all the extended conversation with it. It was no doubt the personal fouls that were tagging along on the backside of the holding that required explanation to both coaches. And, of course, Greer declining, so it'll be 4th for Byrnes near midfield, and the Rebels with the kicking unit out there. One of those situations is far better to be with this explosive Byrnes offense as they've shown in the down situation rather than the yardage situation. As on 4th, they will kick it. This is touched out at the 22, and that's where the Jackets will have it. Well, we find ourselves 3 minutes, 13 seconds removed from the Asheville Chevy Show at the half. Plenty of information coming your way, not only from Stan and Bobby, but also from these two schools, these two programs. You'll learn more about the staffs and the athletic departments, and we'll also have highlights and stats for you, all part of the Asheville Chevy Show coming up at halftime.
Yeah, I tell you, we got a chance to meet the Greer Teacher of the Year in the parking lot. Very, very nice lady. You get a chance to visit with and see schools more than just the athletic side.
Absolutely. Two highly respected across the state for a lot more areas than just the football. And we've already talked about how respected both of these teams are in their respective divisions in South Carolina high school football. More than one trip to Columbia along the way. In fact, you keep counting when you look at the combined total titles between these two. 2:43 remaining in the opening half. Important possession for Greer for no other reason than to just kind of get some things rolling under the new quarterback, Tom. Second series out there for the 10th grader, Platt. And he's trying to give Byrnes a steady dose of LaDainian Martin this time around. Martin with positive yardage. And here comes a 3rd and manageable at the 220 mark.
Yeah, you need one here. Don't give it back. I mean, this is a Byrnes team that's had a 6 times 4 touchdowns, 1 interception for a touchdown as well here alone in the first half. And we talked about that experienced offensive line. Could use it right here.
Yeah, experienced offensive line, even if you have the young quarterback in there trying to build some confidence. He does so by handing off to Martin one more time, and it is apparently 4th down. They flipped the marker that direction, and yes, he's going to be spotted at the 30. Needed almost an additional yard for the first down. And Greer working on some real game situations here. Going to leave that offense out there. See if, at least, if perhaps Platt can draw them off inside the final 90 seconds of the half. And he's looking to the sidelines. Martin along with him. And just 2 seconds on the play clock now. And timeout being taken by Greer before the play clock expired. So kept the offense out there. But with the young QB, it was as much about taking as much time down, it seems, as possible in this first half before the Rebels get the football back. You began to look at the first half as a whole, and this was just a well-rounded effort so far for Byrnes.
Yeah, it was, in all the three aspects of the game, and the ability to have the big play on offense. They were able to make the big play on defense with an interception, kicking game, and hit all 5 extra points, kick it into the end zone, and we've seen that become a major factor in high school football as well. And see Oates there having to lead the defensive side of things as well. So, I mean, if you're Byrnes, you got to feel very good at where you are. We talked a little bit about Greer and that experienced offensive line. They're still, for the majority, juniors. This is a young group, and some of the players as well. It's still a young Greer team that has been playing, many of them as freshmen since that COVID time.
Well, that's the one benefit you have, you said, of a experienced front group for the young QB. And now to kick it away after using as much of the time as possible in this first half. Boy, running up in there confidently and making the fair catch is Armani Weaver, and why not with the way he's performed already tonight. And he'll keep the same fate from occurring against the Rebels that we saw happen to Greer a little bit earlier, in which the ball just kept on bouncing, kept on rolling, kept on hopping in the early stages. But 3 touchdowns right out of the gate for Trey Segura, followed up by, as you said, a pick 6, a defensive score that Armani Weaver was the catalyst for. And then Adonis Edwards receiving touchdown for the junior wide receiver. Add it all up, 35 points with all Coleman's kicks on the board for Byrnes. And here is one more toss the direction of Weaver at right around the 1 minute mark.
Anthony Lyons comes up, makes that play to get him to the turf. And, you know, we were talking, Jason, about Byrnes. This is the 7th possession they've had. As you get one more look, plenty of time to throw it. Good out pattern and good one-on-one tackle as well. They've got the 4 touchdowns in the punt. Greer, on the other hand, got the touchdown, and then they've had punts and interceptions on all the other possessions of the first half.
Well, taking the first Franklin Financial first down for a spin. They tried a connection with Bomar on the far side, and a timely hit just as he was making the catch. Required him to show tremendous athletic ability to hang on. He gets it to near the marker on what will be 2nd down and 1 after this impressive play. And here's Stevens over the middle. He's got his man. The only question is, will it be 6? And the answer is yes for Dawkins, or did they got him right shy of the goal line. So Dawkins going to be stopped at around the 2. Mentioned the only question is, would he get in? You knew it was going to be down near the goal line on a tremendous reception. And here's that catch that we were still somewhat wowed by that Bomar pulled in.
That was remarkable. And then you throw it to the running back. I mean, you know, who comes out of the backfield. Of course, gone 5 wide, playing the slot, things like that.
The only question, as I mentioned, would it be 6? It was not. This is. Rushing it home himself is Andrew Stevens. And Byrnes up over 40 in the first half with just seconds remaining before the intermission. Well, Andrew Stevens kind of putting the exclamation point, at least on the first half, of what has just been an all-around effort for the crew out of Duncan.
Yeah, it has. It's been a clinic here in the first half. And the cliche is they have hit on all cylinders and more. They've looked every bit as good as that number 7 ranking in 5A.
When Reggie Shaw told us this week that his offense had hit its stride, reflecting upon what took place a week ago, you had the mind it might look something like this in the first half if that offense was, as you said, Tom, clicking on all cylinders. They have hit their stride, and they are doing just that. And I'm going to go back to this one more time, Tom.
because this catch by Bomar,
Yes.
somehow keeping the gloves underneath it, didn't move the chains, but those 9 yards set the stage for what was eventually the latest Byrnes score. And, big moments, big plays that are in the future of this Byrnes squad. How do you like to have the kind of talent you see from Bomar there?
I mean, and how do you defend all of the options that they have on the offensive side? And it's just, you spread you out, and then you can run it up inside. So it's been an outstanding performance, no question about it, for Byrnes in the first half. And I tell you, Jason, those touchdown drives, 139, 241, 45 seconds, a minute 12. And this last one was 105. It's pretty quick.
You talked about 7. We talked about that as a number coming in. 7 miles, 7 points for all the scores. 7 times they touched the football in the first half, 6 of them. Very fruitful for this Byrnes squad, at least when you look at the total number of scores. The defense certainly in the thick of things, but this is a Byrnes group that made the most of almost all of their first half possessions. 7 seconds to follow that trend up on the scoreboard as Greer is set to get it back, and that's going to work its way out of bounds. And, of course, the flag coming in on the kick out of bounds. Well, finishing touches coming on this first half now, as they do sort out the penalty. There was maybe more than that. A moment ago we had a holding call that was coupled with a couple of personal fouls on the backside of it, and you know what it's been like throughout the night tonight. And you know it has to be somewhat of a frustrating first half for Greer with the way things have transpired. Just kind of have to go in the locker room, regroup if you're the Jackets, do you not, Tom?
Yep, you just, okay, the first half is over. Let's see what we can accomplish here in the second half, and, get a little bit of something positive happening in the second half, and going to get the ball to begin things.
Saw the young quarterback come in the first half. Obviously, Caden Rowland getting the start, but the last couple of possessions, Keaton Platt has been in at the quarterback position, the 10th grader for Will Young and company.
Yeah, they kind of split a little bit earlier in the year, early on, and we talked about both of these teams, and with the Greer having played Daniel and Hillcrest and then got the win against Blue Ridge last week, they've got to go to Bowling Springs, who's much improved. West Side as well. West Side just beat Hannah last week, and that's before they get into regional play at Lawrence, East Side at Wade, Hampton, and home at Riverside. So a very tough non-conference, and same thing on the other side for Byrnes. They played at Huff, North Carolina, north of Charlotte, got a 24-9 win, and lost to Chapman 17-14 of that game. Came back and beat Greenville last week. They've got Ren West Florence at home before they get into Spartanburg and at Bowling Springs, Dorman, and at Gaffney. And right now, Gaffney's number 2 in 5A, and Spartanburg's number 6, beat Dutch Fork on the road, and this team is 7. Dorman, just got beat by Greenwood, but historically they're going to be tough as well. So that's kind of what it looks like in terms of where Byrnes is concerned.
All those teams we're going to see on Friday Night Rivals between here and the end of the year as well.
Yes.
We travel to Spartanburg. We travel to Dorman. We have Gaffney again on the road. You're looking at these Rebels right now. This 5A race is going to be something special for sure. And as Tom just told you, he is a young quarterback in his 10th grade season, seeing a little bit of time along the way this year, but he's got an experienced line in front of him. We'll see what that translates into second half-wise, but the first 2 quarters of action belong to the Rebels. It is Byrnes 42, Greer 6 at the break. So when you look at it, Tom, it was 7-6 after both teams touched the football once. Everything else since that time for Byrnes has been unanswered, and it's been in all facets.
Yeah, it started with Vomar's kickoff return to the 40-yard line. It'll eventually be a 30-yard run by the freshman Trey Segura, and that was just the beginning of what he was able to accomplish with 3 touchdowns in the first half. And then Greer comes right back, looked good. 62-yard touchdown pass for Caden Rowland at the time to Tycorian Giz. Missed PAT 7-6 at that point. And but since that, the defense settled in for Byrnes and had punt, interception for touchdown, interception, punt, time ran out. That's all that Greer was able to do. And then all but 2-time first half when Byrnes had the ball offensively, they really good touchdowns.
Confident Rebels group working their way into the locker room at the intermission. Stick around. We'll have Reggie Shaw here in just a moment, the Byrnes head coach, to give us his thoughts on the Carolina Furniture Concepts Coaches Corner, as Nelson will be with Coach Shaw. Again, our Coaches Corner, all interviews throughout these broadcasts brought to you by Carolina
furniture concepts. And going to be interesting to see what we hear from the head coach of the Rebels, who told us that his offense hit its stride a week ago. His defense is flying around all over the place. Both of those things were true in this first half in which his club was dominant. He's standing by now with Nelson.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Jason. This is the Coach's Corner, brought to you by Carolina Furniture Concepts. So, Coach, I got to say, y'all have had a most impressive and highly productive first half. Your offense is played in a sensational manner. Your quarterback, he is firmly in control. He is in solid command of the offense, and your defense has been lights out. My God, I mean, this has really been a terrific first half of your team. What were your thoughts, sir?
I think we came out focused and fired up, and we're executing at a high level. This is what we've been waiting on our guys to do, and offensively, we're just clicking. We can't do anything wrong right now. Defensively, we gave up one cheap one, but otherwise, we're pretty good. Special teams have been great too, though.
Now, what can we look forward to in the second half of the game, Coach?
One play at a time. I think we got to run the football a little more and try to control the game.
All right, good luck to your boys in the second half, Coach. Thank you. Back to you, Tom. Back to you, Jason.
There's the game plan the rest of the way. He has that luxury with a 42-6 halftime lead, a dominant performance for the Byrnes Rebels. You want to stick around on the other side of the break? The Asheville Chevy Show at the half. All that and more coming your way on Bojangles Friday Night Rivals when you return to Greer.
Everybody, thank y'all so much for tuning in to the Asheville Chevrolet Halftime Show right here on Friday Night Rivals. Who better to join us than our long-standing and terrific partners from Asheville Chevrolet? Y'all know them well, Stan Anders and Bobby Roussel. Gentlemen, it's always a pleasure to see you both.
Always a pleasure. Great to see you.
Indeed.
Great to have football back.
Of course, we're all excited about the football. I know they are too out there. Now, Stan, it kind of makes me wonder, though, just for the sake of clarity, on one hand, can you share with us some insight into the longevity of y'all's support for this remarkable program? But on the other hand, can you also share with us why? Why is it so critical for y'all to frequently invest in high school athletics and the community as a whole?
Well, we've been doing this from day one, and it's been over a decade that we've been involved. And we want to do that because it's a way to give back to the high school community. These players and cheerleaders and coaches, they want their families to be able to see them when they make a great play or see what kind of hard work that they've been doing. So we love this opportunity to give back.
That does sound like a remarkable opportunity. Now, Bobby, I turn to you on this one because as prolific businessmen as y'all both are, it kind of makes me also wonder, as y'all are both more than well aware, great businesses are predicated on the idea of terrific customer service. But I know for a fact, Asheville Chevrolet, y'all are predicated on the idea of exceptional customer service. How exactly do y'all do it? You know, what's the secret out there?
Well, Nelson, we have customers for life because we give them that extra, whatever they need, whatever it takes to make them come back. And anybody can sell you one car. I want to sell you 5 or 6 cars. Wow. And we don't sell cars. We don't mark them up to mark them down. We sell the cars at list price, while the other dealers were taking advantage of COVID and selling them over list. We sell them at list. We don't change. We give you a fair price and a fair number on your trade to make you happy and make you come back.
That all sounds like fantastic work. Well, Bobby, Stan, as always, on behalf of the entire community and the region as a whole, I want to thank y'all for y'all's long and robust support of high school athletics and more specifically Friday Night Rivals. We truly could not do it without y'all. All right. We'll be back in just a moment.
Eagles Friday Night Rivals halftime, brought to you by Asheville Chevrolet.
Welcome back to the Asheville Chevrolet halftime show right here on Friday Night Rivals. I'm joined here on the sidelines by two wonderful teachers here at Greer High School, Dr. Bertie Barbary and Allison Duncan. Ladies, good to have you both on the show.
Hey, thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. Now, ladies, let's talk about the unique relationship between the Greer High community and Greer High School itself. What can you tell us about that? Go first.
Oh, it is a hometown like no other. Bertie and I both grew up here. And I actually sat in these stands when I was a young child. And once you get to high school, there's a lot of excitement to be a part of this whole tradition here. And that's one thing that we strive ourselves on is a lot of tradition and community. Everybody's very connected.
I like it. Bertie, you want to add to that?
Yeah, we have a big family bond at Greer High School, and it's not like that everywhere. I think that's what makes it so unique at Greer High School is people want to come back because we're such a family, and it's not just internally, it extends out to the community, so everybody feels that, and we all just look out for one another, so that makes it just a wonderful place to work and live.
Now, speaking of work, what exactly do you guys teach?
I teach art.
I teach physical education.
Okay, and how long have y'all been teachers here, by the way?
This is my 18th year.
And this is my 7th year.
All right, y'all have great longevity. I like that.
I taught Bertie.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, I taught.
Well, now, what kind of a student was she? We have to know these things.
She was fantastic, super involved in student council. And also, she was a fantastic art student.
I really couldn't draw, but like stick figures, so that was a high compliment.
That's fantastic. Now, very briefly, what are y'all's thoughts on the game so far?
Well, we have a great crowd out here that's being very supportive. Our players are working hard, and, they're showing a lot of grit. That's for sure.
What do you think?
I'm sure Coach Young is going to get them fired up at halftime, so I'm really looking forward to see how they come out with some energy and see what they do in the third and fourth quarter.
All right. Well, ladies, I want to thank you both for taking the time to speak with us here today, and good luck to your team as well. All right. We'll be back in just a moment. Hey everybody, I'm Nelson Weston. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to Friday Night Rivals. Joining us today is our long-standing good friend all the way from Ingalls Markets, Melissa Leva. Good to see you, my friend.
Your football friend.
It's football friend indeed. Now, Melissa, speaking of football, I want to transition from football to the classroom because you and I both know y'all have a famous program called Tools for Schools. And for those who are unfamiliar, how exactly does it operate on one hand, but on the other hand, more importantly, how do the good folks at home go about supporting it and getting involved today?
Oh, Nelson, it's really a wonderful program because it's geared toward the school and the needs that they have that sometimes, lots of times, teachers will actually end up buying out of their own pocket.
Indeed.
You have an Ingalls Advantage card and a list of schools who participate in the Ingalls Tools for School program. Link your card to one of those schools, and every time you shop, you're earning dollars. At the end of the year, the school can go and purchase what items they need.
Oh, that sounds like an amazing and well-rounded program.
Right.
Now, Ingalls, y'all have provided robust support to the community for so many years now. We're talking high school athletics, college athletics, and everything in between. It does beg the fundamental question, why? Why is it so critical for y'all?
Well, it's not just sports, but it's also educational programs. But we're the home team. Ingalls is your hometown grocery market. So you are also supporting our home teams.
Of course.
It's really important for us to be a part of that community. We love being part of that, and we're blessed to be able to do that. Lots of those students work at our stores or graduated from those schools. We see these people in church. We see these people at work. This is a really big deal for us. Might be a big company to look at us from the outside in, but we like being beacons in our own communities.
Y'all are beacons indeed. All outstanding work. And Melissa, very quickly, you and I both know no great game is complete without delicious, mouthwatering good food. What are some of the most popular items on y'all's menu?
Oh my goodness, you have to start off with a wonderful boar's head sub, just absolutely good with all the trimmings, great fried chicken, all the sides you could possibly want, a wonderful salad bar, a wing bar, olive bar. I mean, I don't know if I could decide. I just have to go get a big old wheelbarrow and take it all there, plus all the things you need like chips and drinks and paper plates. One-stop shopping place for all your tailgating.
All fantastic work indeed. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for your time here today.
Thank you, Nelson.
All right. We'll be back in just a moment.
Byrnes Rebels up
Evan, are you ready?
big at the half. 42-6 is our score. Time to take a look back at some of the sights and sounds from the first half of action. Tom, you're going to see a whole bunch of Trey Segura.
Yeah, freshman. He gets on the board early, but a 30-yard run. And then, here's a nice play here. Corrine Gist takes the distance, 62 yards. All of a sudden, we had a 7-6 game in the first couple of possessions. But then Andrew Stevens and company start taking control, dump it out to Segura. What does he do with it? Takes it into the end zone for a touchdown.
Boy, Segura ends up living up to the name with the trio of touchdowns for Trey in that first half. And mentioned his jersey numbers we talked about in that category. Here's where the defense got involved, Tom.
Yeah, able to read that key, cut in front, taking the distance for the touchdown.
Armani Weaver getting the defensive impact moment that jump-started things defensively. And then this ended up being kind of a symbolic to some degree of some of what Greer dealt with. They changed quarterbacks after the latest of the picks, which is reeled in by Bomar. So we saw both Roland, and then in the case of the last couple of possessions, Platt came on and was a part of things offensively for Greer. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the second half from a personnel standpoint. And for more on the locker room and the Greer side of things, let's check in with the head coach of the Jackets, who's with Nelson.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Jason. This is the Coach's Corner, brought to you by Carolina Furniture Concepts. Well, Coach, I know it was kind of a difficult first half, but you guys did have some good points in the first half as well. What were your thoughts on the Coach. What were your thoughts on the first half, and what was the message to the boys in the locker room?
Well, I mean, we continue to be our own worst enemy. We self-destructed quite a bit there in the second quarter, and that's why you see the score the way it is. We won't go down without swinging, though. We'll keep coming back in the second half. We'll play good football, and
hopefully get back on track. We got a deep hole to get out of, and we'll do our best to get out of it.
All right, good luck to your boys in the second half, Coach. Yes, sir. Back to you, Tom. Back to you, Jason.
The one thing you heard from Will Young, and he's aware, much of it he felt like self-inflicted. You heard his challenge to begin to just kind of climb back. Here's a look at some of the numbers from the first half of action. We will break away, come back with second half action between Byrnes and Greer right after this. You know the history of this Byrnes program. Their last loss to a Greenville County team was to this Greer squad, but that was all the way back in the year 2000, right at the turn of the century, having been dominant in recent years. And you heard from Coach Will Young coming out of the locker room talking about the main message to his team being clean up some of the self-inflicted stuff, Tom, so they could begin to climb out of the hole.
You know, and when we talked to him earlier this week, he was, very honest about some of the situations that occurred at the Daniel game, 48-20, and at Hillcrest 40-21, some mental mistakes, and made some of those problematic in terms of trying to get back into the game. And some of those things have reared their head here in this ball game tonight. Byrnes has taken advantage of a couple of situations as well, and they've been able to get some matchups they liked and able to put 42 points on the board.
You know, his challenge to his crew, you think about his background, you talked about it, Daniel, Clemson. It's going to be a challenge of toughness. He wants to look deep in the eyes of these players and challenge them, particularly those that do the tough work in the trenches for him, to be the leadership that stands up, because that group, his offensive line particularly, that we focus so much on when you look at this coaching staff, when you look at the history for Greer, you know, they have the experience level to begin to insert their will into this game, and that's what's going to have to happen as Greer tries to make strides in the third quarter.
And the non-conference schedule for both, very difficult. Been talking with Coach this week. It is, and it prepares you for region play and then hopefully postseason play as well. But really going to run into some outstanding teams, both in the non-conference play. When you only have 4 region games, you've got to get 6 non-conference games somewhere.
Yeah, and both these teams making sure they're battle tested for what will be tough region slates. And you said it, they both expect to be involved postseason wise deep on in to the fall of 2023. This goes deep on in to that Greer side and beyond the end zone. A touchback, the latest of those. Boy, what a luxury it is to have a guy like Jacob Coleman
That's
on the
where
roster.
I was headed to. I tell you, almost every kick goes into the end zone, and you start from your own 20-yard line. They'll provide opportunity for a big return or something that can just switch the momentum.
First question answered. Keaton Platt trots back out at the quarterback position. The 10th grader will start the second half for Greer. And he'll toss this. Had his man on the move on an attempted connection with Chris Hall, but it is incomplete. We glanced at those numbers at the end of halftime. What jumped out at you statistically from that first half?
300 total, and then the way that they were able to manufacture not only on the ground but also through the air and able to get touchdowns that way, and also from a defensive standpoint, the 3 turnovers were big as well. The turnover for the touchdown, 40 yards, and the other interception led to a touchdown as well.
course, you think about the 3 touchdowns that jump-started things from Trey Segura that you saw during that package. Think about the different playmakers that have been a part of things all the way to Adonis Edwards, who was there, Armani Weaver, who's been a part of things as we talked about. Just an all-around effort for Byrnes in that first half, if you weren't with us, as the Rebels took what was a 7-6 game after the first touch for both teams and turned it into a 42-6 score at the half, 42-6 where we stand. Here's the young QB in the pocket, and as he dumped this out, footsteps were coming for Brock Diggins, the junior wide receiver, and it is in and out of his hands as a result. And it's going to be 4th down and 9.
Got an incomplete pass on first down, and you got to get behind the chains a little bit. Had some time and had a chance right there, just in and out of his hands, and some disappointment there. Maybe he can turn it up, but didn't have it.
Antoine Harris was bearing down on him for Byrnes. You see Livingston there. As he and his group, special teams-wise, line up on that front. The return man back at the 44. And now backpedaling to around the 40. Just able to sneak that on out of there is the punter. And coming up, catching that on the Greer logo. Fair catch variety. And that's where Byrnes will take over, just inside Greer territory. Rebels will have it there when you return to Greer. Well, tonight's fan of the game brought to you by Western Carolina. Western Carolina reminding you to use your advantage, particularly if you're in state in North Carolina. The opportunity's endless for you thanks to the NC Promise tuition plan. $500 in tuition per semester for a degree that prepares you for a thriving future. That's Western Carolina. Here's a look at the first down play just a moment ago that was run in the break. A deep shot for Byrnes that was not, and now they go back to work on the ground. And here are the Rebels making hay behind Zy Landrum, who is inside the 30 and going to be out of bounds around the 24-yard line. And Tom, regardless of whether they go to the air, a near touchdown a moment ago, or keep it on the ground, this is a Byrnes team that's doing that, rolling up the yards, as you see that from Zy Landrum.
Yeah, he gets a chance to play a little bit. The transfer coming in from Boiling Springs. And we saw a number of different players get into the contest in the first half, and probably going to get some activity for some youngsters as well here in the second half.
Now Zy Landrum going to turn in this case and hand off to Jacoby Smith, a sophomore, carries that forward. Landrum with that last carry picking up a First Franklin Financial first down, so a handful of yards from Jacoby Smith, making it second down and about 7. Byrnes looking for that score that would shorten the night with the 42-6 lead already in effect. And a second down and 8, what they're facing from just on the doorstep of the First Bank red zone. And trying to score from outside it on a toss to the end zone is the quarterback, Zy Landrum, but this one is incomplete. A couple of yellow jackets there on the coverage.
Yeah, nice job back there. Jalen Green getting a chance to play in the backside a little bit.
You see Landrum, who's listed as a wide receiver, handles the quarterbacking responsibilities in behind Andrew Stevens. Getting some early third quarter work with the separation the Rebels have created. Boy, the thing you notice right away is so many weapons for Byrnes now.
Yeah, they can do a lot of different things. They've been able to throw it out of the perimeter. They've been throw it deep. And then with Segura able to run it up inside as well and provides some other opportunity. And also throw it to the back out of the backfield as well. So very difficult to defend.
We'll break away with timeout taken at the 10:07 mark in the third. Well, quite a night already for the Byrnes Rebels at Greer, including the job done early by Trey Segura. He's the recipient of tonight's Spartanburg Community College Game Ball. The Game Ball each week on Friday Night Rivals, sponsored by Spartanburg Community College, where you can dream it, chase it, and live it. He was chasing it and living it. A dream night under the bright lights of Friday Night Rivals for Trey Segura, who had the first 3 Byrnes touchdowns on this night. Now number 3 in at quarterback, and he makes the connection down on the goal line. Just a yard shy of pay dirt is Adonis Edwards, who's already found the end zone once. This time he receives the pass from Zy Landrum, who's on the money with this delivery out of the under duress moment. Tom.
Man, nicely done there. He got away from the first defender, and then with one hanging on, shows his versatility and able to get out of the pocket, and make a play on the move. Nicely done.
Used almost every bit of the First Bank red zone right there, but there's a play going to take place in the shadow of the goal line. First Bank, obviously our sponsor of the red zone on this night, 21 locations across Western North Carolina and the upstate of South Carolina to serve you. Calling his own number is Zy Landrum, and he is stacked up at the goal line. Going to be just short of his own rushing touchdown. And take a look at the job done by that Greer front here defensively, breaking through to provide the stop is the senior Darius Johnson.
Yeah, 5'10", 220, a senior, came into a nice contest as the leading tackler for the Yellow Jackets with 33, including 5 tackle for loss and 3 quarterback sacks.
Again, this time, plenty of real estate, and lunging across the goal line is Zy Landrum at the quarterback position for Byrnes. He scores the latest of the Rebels TDs. It is now 48-6 Byrnes as it's Zy Landrum keeping it on the ground.
Yeah, you get a look at it there, and he was able to find a crease and then accelerated to the end zone for the touchdown. Boy, good drive. Had really good field position again, and they've had that. They haven't needed great field position. They started once at the 7-yard line, put together a touchdown drive that ended up 45 seconds later.
Yeah, I was going to say 93 yards in under a minute that time around. It has been the quick strike offense of the Byrnes Rebels, the headliner tonight. And one shy of 50 on the board as the latest of Coleman's kicks is true. 9:25 remaining in the third quarter, and Byrnes tacking on a little more. This time, Zy Landrum finds the end zone. Well, a Zy Landrum touchdown for Byrnes. Lead extended to 49-6 for the visiting Rebels. Crew out of Duncan tonight. As advertised in all phases. You know, 9-4 a year ago, you talked about it. Round 3 of the 5A playoffs. Ran into one of their nemesis in the Upstate, that Gaffney Indian squad that we'll see a little later on in the year as well. And a team that, boy, doesn't this speak to Region 2? 2-2 in the region, and then went that deep into the playoffs. Just speaks to how competitive it is and will be for Coach Shaw's squad, the Royal Blue and Gray, shining under the bright lights on this night with 9:25 to play in the third quarter and boasting that lead. And a little
end-over-end kick. That's going to bounce and is a live ball, and it'll belong to Byrnes. Flying in there to gather it up for the Rebels is James Oates, the senior linebacker. Comes away with the recovery on the kickoff.
Tell you, Oates has been all over the place tonight. We saw him special teams make a great tackle as well. Just popped it. Nobody there and able to go get it, recover it.
So Buckley putting a foot into that. That'll serve you well
I tell you
as
what,
you get a little deeper into the year, right?
You see that on film, not only kick it into the end zone, but, there was a kind of a gray area there and able to just plop it down there.
Well, you begin to think, you talk about seeing that on film, what it will serve to place in the minds of opponents the rest of the way, that you have to, again, with all the leg strength that exists, honor Byrnes' ability to snatch one away in the heart of an open special teams unit. They do that here. And play being stopped on a flag that is down on the far side. So these two teams trying to work into some type of third quarter rhythm here at the 8:32 mark. But following a change of possession on the touchdown and then an onside kick that kept Byrnes out on the field, we get an offensive penalty against the Rebels that'll back things up to the 35 and now ready as the clock rolls at 8:30 and ticking downward, something you'll see it do for the remainder with the 49-6 split in effect. On the ground and running over a potential tackler at the 27-yard line. The ball carrier for the Rebels.
Yeah, a lot of different folks getting in there. I'm just going to check the offensive line for you. They're all brand new here in the second half. And
as was the ball carrier, not
yes,
on the roster we were provided by the Byrnes Rebels. No 40 on what Byrnes passed along. So, again, so many young and new faces getting to be a part of things tonight. And, Tom, this is valuable experience for young men who may be called upon, depending upon what your situation and needs will be as you hit region play.
Yeah, it is. You get a chance, and many times you don't, depending on who you play and how competitive it is to a certain extent. But, boy, you can't beat the experience you can get under the lights on Friday night that they could help you, hopefully, somewhere down the line. Yeah, we're getting pretty deep into the roster now. Saw your Smiths up front, a senior offensive lineman. Elijah Birch is in there as well as a senior offensive lineman. In addition to Zach Evans, also getting a chance to play a little bit as well. And I think Fred Rogers might be in there as well.
Fred Rogers seeing some time. Well, beautiful day in the neighborhood at Byrnes, right?
There you go.
About the way things have gone all the way around for the crew out of Duncan. Red zone opportunity, First Bank Red Zone. Again, we remind you they have so many locations, 5 in the Upstate, 21 total in the Carolinas to serve you, and continuing to rush this direction with it near side. The latest of the Byrnes ball carriers, and again, in both the case of the last 2 ball carriers for Byrnes, I've checked all 3 of the different rosters that we were provided in depth charts by Byrnes, as I know you have. Some of the young players that are going to be a part of the future of this Byrnes Rebels program seeing valuable time right now, though they're not listed among those starting units or even among the reserves on the Byrnes rosters at this point. But doing the good work in the heavy lifting to inside the 5 and down to the 3-yard line as Byrnes keeps the clock rolling and keeps the yards rolling on up offensively.
Well, they got Greer to punt on their first possession, able to get over the 50-yard line. And again, that was one of those situations where it was another short drive, 146, as Lander took it in from 2 yards away, then kind of popped a little kickoff there, recovered by James Oates. And this started at about the 30-yard line, and almost every drive has been less than 2 minutes here tonight.
And it's going to work its way beyond the 15, and running for his life a bit is Zy Landrum. Just kind of fires this into the air. Had a man back corner of the end zone, but that's out of play and incomplete. Clock obviously will keep rolling despite the incompletion based upon, I say that, and it comes to a halt at 5:44. But here's another look at the toss toward the corner of the end zone. Again, number 34, the intended target.
Hey, Zy Landrum, he can make something happen back there. It's hard to get to the turf. showing his versatility in the backfield.
Guy Landrum, who was taken over at the quarterback position after another impressive night from Andrew Stevens, the Byrnes starter. And Landrum this time will roll. Flags come flying in as Landrum is rushed out of bounds at the 6-yard line.
So there's Landrum again. You see he's got an opportunity after Stevens in the first half, and Stevens was able to throw a couple touchdown passes in the first half. He also had a 2-yard run late in the first half to provide that 42-6 lead at intermission, and then added the touchdown here in the third quarter and trying to tack one more on.
So 5:16 where things are halted.
And personal foul, I think. Put it back a little bit farther, yep.
Well, you had said the names were going to be our saving grace tonight, but in the case of those not on the roster, guess what's not on the back of the jersey either?
I know.
They're still earning those.
Yes.
Some of the young men earning their stripes. And again, just a great night for Byrnes to get some of those key playmakers and some of those key pieces for the future into the contest. And in the cases of the linemen and some of those that you were referencing earlier, whose names we were able to pass along, Tom, you never know when you might be called upon in a key situation in region play. So these do become very valuable moments.
Well, and the other thing about it, too, is what we've seen tonight is we haven't seen a lot of players going both ways.
Yeah.
Some we have at the wide receivers and the cornerback spots and defensive backs, but in many of the games we do, and it's so difficult to be able to do both of those.
Stepping up for the takeaway is Brody Diggins of Greer. It's the junior linebacker who ran it all the way and turns aside this latest Byrnes scoring drive.
Yeah, nice read. He's had a nice game tonight as well. And you'll get one more look at it. Steps right in front of the intended receiver and rolling to the ground there. Nice catch, and a nice job to get the interception to stop that drive before they get it to the end zone.
Well, you are looking at the recipient of tonight's Dirty Jersey Award, Brody Diggins, who did some of the hard work. You know, on the night when all the work unis and the hard hats have been out on both sides, you saw workmanlike effort in the red zone to turn aside this Byrnes scoring chance. And again, just another tremendous moment on the Greer side of things this time around for Brody Diggins.
Yeah, had a chance there, and the penalty, big penalty, pushed Byrnes back there and decided to try to throw the football a little bit, and Diggins made an outstanding catch. And see if they get anything going offensively here as we get late into the third quarter.
Up across the 20 to the 25-yard line. More of LaDainian Martin. You know, that is one of the storylines of the night. Greer fans able to see LaDainian Martin get back out there for the Jackets. They had to ask players like Chris Hall and others to step up in his absence earlier in the year. But this is a team going to be highly competitive when they hit region play, Tom, as they always are. And he's going to be a key piece of that now that he's back.
Yeah, he missed the last two games after playing with the first game at Daniel and was 15 for 155 and 3 touchdowns in that game, about 9.7 yards per carry. Taken down there, but
trio of Byrnes Rebels hanging on as they will ultimately bring Platt to the turf. The quarterback, the 10th grader, brought down on this occasion by number 10. And you know by now, when we give you a number like that, in the case of a number of these Byrnes reserves with no name on the back, no name on the roster, just those of you that follow the Byrnes program, no doubt, and certainly those that can tell mom and dad, friends and neighbors, those that understand from the body language alone, know exactly who it is getting a moment on a night like this to be a part of what's shaping up to be and trending toward a key win for a Byrnes team, Tom, that I'll go back to it, has answered the bell after that difficult setback back on the 25th of August against Chapman. They answered the bell against a couple of Greenville County schools in succession. the Red Raiders a week ago, and boy, have they had their way with the Jackets tonight.
Yeah, they opened the season on the road on a Saturday at Huff, North Carolina, and won 24-9, and then led 14-0 first quarter at Chapman. And my 40, we've been over there a couple of times when Mark Hodge was the head coach. Tough place to play, and Chapman scored the final 17. And then against a Greenville team that has been highly regarded as well. And Hannah beat Greenville earlier, but then got a pretty good 37-14. So a nice bounce back. And you don't have to look in the mirror, as Coach said, and focus on us and on our team and get better and had competitive practices. And it has spilled over into this game as well.
Evan said we do it right at the end of the third quarter.
1:41 to go, and they gather up on the near side, this Greer squad, ahead of a third down play that is coming. Let's glance ahead just a little bit for Greer before we get to the end of the third quarter here, Tom. I know you're talking about what the future holds for a team that is experienced up on the line, facing one of the tougher challenges tonight they'll see all year.
Yeah, Byrnes is again highly regarded, and coming into the season, it was a little bit of a disappointment in the Chapman, but Chapman's a good team, tough to play there. But you got your wake up call. Our coach told us that they came back to practice and they did what they needed to do, and they understand that anybody can beat you on any night. And then they responded with the nice win that they did have the last time out over Greenville, and they're going to be a tough team to reckon with as the season goes on.
This tossed over the middle into the flat at the 30-yard line, and everything gathered up shy of the 35 and short of first down yardage as the clock rolls inside of 90 seconds remaining. Well, what a night to be here at Greer, and some of those players on both sides whose names we call here. That's Nigel Johnson, a wide receiver, a senior involved there. Brock Diggins, just in case, the wide out with it when all was said and done, but things hold steady at fourth down. They're going to call it a long 3. As the Jackets are set to punch this away, and they will kick it. Fair catch being called for, and a diving effort to that end for David Wilson, the senior DB on the Rebels side of things that handles this fair catch. So 45 seconds remaining in the third quarter. Clock stopped in the 49-6 contest. And now beginning to roll as Byrnes makes their way out onto the field.
And Jason talking about Greer, and they played Daniel and Hillcrest, and Hillcrest apparently has one of the better teams they've had in a while. And you go back to this Byrnes team, and in the playoffs, they were able to win at Hillcrest, at Blythewood by 3 points before they lost to Gaffney. And the Greer still got to play at a very much improved at Boiling Springs. And then they've got a West Side team at home who just beat TL Hannah. So it doesn't get a whole lot easier for Greer in non-conference before they get into region.
But it will be a battle-tested team when region play comes. Well, that had a chance to be a little difficult for Byrnes when all was said and done. Ball bounced back to the Rebels, and they will maintain possession. The Rebels, that is, as we enter the fourth quarter momentarily. First things first, though, time to check in with Nelson. What a joy to be here at Greer tonight. It's time for tonight's check presentation.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Jason. As you just said, I'm standing on the sidelines here with some of the gorgeous cheerleaders of Greer High School. Ladies, on behalf of Friday Night Rivals, thank y'all so much for allowing us to be here today. We proudly present y'all a check for $500. Tom, Jason, back to you guys.
All right, Nelson, it has been a nice night in Greer. The weather's solid. The Byrnes Rebels strong. 49-6 will be our score as we enter the fourth quarter on the other side of the break. All right, plenty to smile about on this night. A lot of points up on the scoreboard as we look at the Nth Degree Orthodontics Smile Cam at the beginning of the fourth quarter. This is the play that will start the fourth quarter of action. You see a number of them smiling on the far side, and why not, with Byrnes on the doorstep of 50 and the football in hand for the Rebels. And the foreplay can begin in the fourth quarter. They're going to walk this off to the 42, and it'll be second down and about 8. So clock does roll with 11:38 and working downward remaining in the contest. 7-6 Byrnes after the first possession for both teams. It's going to be ruled incomplete. And from there, it has been nothing but Byrnes. And all facets for fans just finding us at the start of the fourth quarter, Tom. Offense, defense, special teams, as you'll see with some of the highlights we show you the rest of the way, all a factor for Byrnes.
Well, it started with a fine kickoff return by Beaumont. He got at the 40-yard line, and that would begin the first touchdown drive of the game. And it was 7-0. And Segura went about 30 yards. At one point, it was 7-6, and pretty much been all Byrnes since then.
And a lot of the Byrnes key role players working their way into the contest in that third quarter. Really, in many ways, going to get to play a half of football in some cases as spin move takes it inside of the 47-yard line. And you move the chains one more time. The latest of the First Franklin Financial first downs. First Franklin Financial, sponsor of all of our first downs tonight on Friday Night Rivals. Happy for those of you hanging around with us here into the fourth period and seeing, again, some of the youngsters that work their way into action for Byrnes. And it's across the 45 down to the 43-yard line, matching the jersey number of the young ball carrier for the Rebels.
Well, we've seen Byrnes score through the air, on the ground, and also via the interception. And most of the drives have been very quick. Only one of them was over 22 minutes and 41 seconds back in the first period on an 18-yard touchdown pass from Andrew Stevens to Segura. Also had a couple on the ground. He did 30 yards and 18 yards as well. Also, Stevens able to carry it in from 2 as well. We had an interception return by Weaver of 40 yards as well. Got a lot of different people involved on the offensive side. And, you know, what's going to get lost in the shuffle, I think, a little bit here when you take a look at the score. Yes, Byrnes was very good offensively, but the defense has been stellar as well here, in addition to the kicking game here tonight.
Yeah, everything you would want. Those who hopped the bus and made the short 7-mile journey. Here's a look at the starting QB for the Rebels. Andrew Stevens, everything beginning under his direction tonight. An efficient night at the quarterback position for the field general for Byrnes. And now 13 out there. We'll toss far side. Fourth down coming at the 8:50 mark.
Stevens coming in for Colby Shaw, who 1 year ago directed that 9-4 team, and went 2-2, and we talked about it in Region 2 and in 5A, and again we keep mentioning that it's been a pretty difficult time in that region, and it will be again this year.
Yeah, no rest for the weary when it comes to what is in front of you. But it's going to be a lot of fun for football fans in the Carolinas for sure. And this is picked. Another interception for Greer. And a return setup down the near side. Plenty of running room. In fact, enough running room for Brody Diggins to take it on in. How about the work of Brody Diggins in the latter stages of this one, as he comes away with the latest of the Greer picks, and he turns it into a pick six.
They have a strong second half here tonight. And Coach Young talking to Nelson right before the start of the second half. As you get one more look at it, he was in his zone there, and right out in front there. Johnson going to help provide the way, and he takes it down the sideline. And the coach was telling us, though, that his team is going to stay there. They're going to fight hard and continue to play hard, and they have here late in the ball game.
Well, we told you he's been among those getting the Jersey dirty for Greer tonight. You know, so many candidates. You think about the great work that we saw earlier in the contest on the Byrnes side from James Oates, who's been all over the field. He's certainly a worthy candidate. You talk about Brody Diggins in the last several moments and what he's done in the latter stages. Here he serves to provide the defensive moment that puts Greer on the board for the first time since the opening possession, and we will tab it as our Henson's Mulch and More dirty jersey of the game, as he was doing the hard work and the heavy lifting in the second half for the Greer D.
Yeah, nice job there, able to pick it off and settle back in that area where he was. And once he got it, he knew what to do with it as he took it the distance to a touchdown. And gets Greer on the board here late in the ball game.
Hard to see just how dirty that black jersey gets, right? Whenever you're working your way through the difficulty of a football Friday night, but he was all over the field tonight. Had a couple, as we said, of the key moments late. Didn't have to get the dirty any jersey on that last play, as he was untouched once he snatched hold of the football. Congratulations to Brody Diggins, who in this his junior season, linebacker for Greer, has a couple of highlight moments for the Jackets here in the second half.
Oh, a beautiful night for football, and kind of cooled off. We talked with both coaches this week about the heat, and everybody has to deal with it, and you can't control that. But having to prepare, sometimes they said, in the gym and not really having pads on, and it's very difficult to do the type of preparations that you need to do for game activity. Now we understand why that is, but it has been tough. I'm sure everybody in our part of the country is happy that it's cooled off a little bit as we get a little bit later on in here in September.
No doubt about it. What you're telling me is fall's coming, right?
I think that's the story I hear. Anyway.
You would know.
Beginning to wonder. Well, yeah.
8:08 remaining in the football game, and Greer scoring for the first time since their opening drive. And it comes with a pick six from Brody Diggins of the Jackets. And now the Yellow Jackets, living up to their name, swarming at around the 25-yard line to bring down the Byrnes return man. They're going to give him his progress all the way up to around the 27 or 28. We'll see where they actually set the football down when all is said and done. Clock rolls for Byrnes to take the field once again.
Well, when you take a look at Byrnes long term here, the ability to run the football and what they've been able to accomplish beginning with Trey Segura and the development of the quarterback, Andrew Stevens. And Coach Shaw telling us this week want to be balanced on offense. And a year ago, 67% of their offense was through the air, and effectively so. And I think we've seen tonight that they can do it in a number of different ways, in the way they've done it with a passing game out of the perimeter and explosive plays there. And, they've gone downfield as well. They've got the skill position players as well to be able to do that. It's just going to be real difficult. And then the ability of Segura to run the ball, and not only that, throw it out of the backfield. We've seen that as well. So they have so many weapons that they can use. It'll be tough to slow down offensively.
Well, and remember, this is the generation of kids that was put to bed with stories of what Marcus Lattimore did on a given Friday night, and Willie Korn, and, of course, the Bentley days and the Bentley boys. And you think about the great teams that Chris Miller put together on the backside of that, and the Byrnes dynasty that dominated South Carolina football in many ways through the early 2000s. These are the young men that grew up with those being recent memories for the community there in Duncan, that has become one of the premier landing spots for high school football. And now they're ready, it would seem, to write a chapter of their own, Tom.
Would like to get back and contend for the championship. Lost third round to a really good Gaffney. We know how good Gaffney or Dan Jones has been in their state championship a year or so ago.
But the third round run was impressive. And then they've added some of the new faces that we've seen tonight. Some that we're still gathering names on some of the new faces that we've seen tonight. But the new faces in the likes of Andrew Stevens, the receivers, and boy, when Coach Shaw told us they hit their stride offensively a week ago, he meant it, and it's shown up to the tune of 49 points tonight.
Yeah, and if you're Greer, you just, you take it on the chin. It was a tough one here tonight, and you regroup and you try to get better. It's still a young football team, and Will Young in his 18th year here as the head football coach of Greer. They've had great success, and they would definitely like to get back and have the opportunity to the challenge again. And last year started 1-5 and went 3-1 in region play. And that one loss was the Lawrence by 3 points. So they came strong down the stretch. And we talk about the players on their team. They're still a young team. They've gotten to play a lot over the last couple of years, but want to take that next step.
No reason to believe they won't do so again, make a strong run. Jalen Byrnes, Jr., that was on the heart of your screen a moment ago. There's the premier performer defensively for Greer tonight, Brody Diggins, and joined by the likes of Peyton Armstrong. Saw a number of different players make their mark in recent moments defensively, and as a result, Byrnes forced to kick it away. Just able to sneak that punt out of there. It will land at around the 30 and take a roll. Up with it, trying to make something happen was Kenai Cook. He said, they're going to have to show me with a whistle that this thing's over with, and eventually they do. We got a player down. The last thing you want to see toward the end of the contest, and it would appear to be Jacob Coleman. Boy, that would – is that the case for Byrnes? That
so.
Jacob Coleman, the punter, kicker, extraordinaire, now in his senior campaign, so often tonight we've talked about just what he provides, brings to the table for Byrnes, and you never want to see anybody toward the end of the game surrounded by the training staff, but certainly someone as integral and as much of a tone setter as Coleman has been for this Byrnes squad. A little slow moving off. Now there's a flag that you can see him walking right by after the contact on the kicker, and the personal foul is coming, but bigger than the personal foul in the yardage right now, the status of Coleman, who's quite a weapon for Byrnes.
Yeah, just coming late in there and full out block going on and just happened to roll right up into his ankle area.
Yeah, it's right at the end of it where Darius Johnson was the later of the arrivals. And again, further work for that training staff for Byrnes tonight, as the Rebels maintain possession following the penalty. It's been Zy Landrum at the quarterback position of late. He's going to turn and give this off. 35 rushing with it down toward the 40-yard line. And this sets the stage for, you've said it more than once, Wren on the 15th, West Florence on the 22nd, Spartanburg on the 29th, Boiling Springs on October 6th, Dorman on the 13th, and Gaffney on the road at the reservation on the 27th. All of that in front of Byrnes. And that last slate there for the crew, having just picked up the latest of the first Franklin Financial first downs. So much of what you circle. And tonight, I think served notice. And I would say this too, Tom, left a couple of things in the minds of their opponents. The kick that was recovered that showed a different wrinkle that we saw James Oates fly in there and take away on the short kick. There were a number of things that Byrnes revealed tonight. Didn't lay the whole playbook out there, but a number of weapons that Byrnes showed you tonight and a number of different wrinkles in the playbook that opponents are going to have to think about that emerged from the primetime moment.
Yeah, and as you get into region play, and everybody knows everybody in style of play, and Landrum back in there.
Just able to toss that to the far side in order to make a connection to Zy Landrum. And we got another Byrnes player down at around the 40. And everything will come to a halt with 2:37 left to go.
Well, Byrnes right now is number 7 in 5A in the latest poll. And Spartanburg 6. Gaffney's number 2. I mean, Gaffney, of course, you had the ball game. I-40 did the 44-38 game. Gaffney and Crest, which was a great game. Of course, Jim Sosby at Crest now was at Greenville High School, and it was also at Hendersonville High School as well. And
a little bit of a wake-up call for that group in many ways, like what we talked about with Chapman on the Byrnes side of things.
And they've since beaten South Point.
Yes.
And you look at Spartanburg wins at Dutch Fork. Dutch Fork has lost 3 games this year, which is, go back to what, 2016, 17, something like that.
You heard him right, fans. The Dutch Fork, not
been
the
a while.
Dutch Fork you have seen over the last several years. Is to his feet now is the Byrnes lineman. Here's another look at exactly what happened.
Yep, just kind of going down the line of scrimmage and just kind of got caught up in the mesh there, and that happens sometimes. And
training staff,
hope he's okay.
Too busy all of a sudden toward the end of things and grasping that name and number as they work their way off to the far side.
And
again, you hope at this point no lingering effects for any of those Byrnes players. They were a little slow to depart off those second and third slots on the depth chart for many of the Rebels. But yeah, for those who don't follow South Carolina football, Tom Knotts and the dynasty he has built at Dutch Fork, which last year answered the question in many ways, Tom, could they roll through the upper state side of the playoffs? Dutch Fork did just that to make it back to the state championship game and win the latest of the 5A crowns. They've won all but one of the 5A crowns since the 5A classification was established. Of course, you'll remember the work that he did, Independence on the North Carolina side of the line before taking over at Dutch Fork, Chris League fame and beyond, before moving to South Carolina and setting up shop. But a big win for Spartanburg in that one. And everybody in the region just going to, improve as they go deeper and deeper into the season. And I point to this Byrnes squad that played even 500 in the region a year ago at 2-2, but then made the deeper of the runs into the playoffs. So you just know and understand the strength of this region football-wise that Byrnes will have to deal with as they're back in the First Bank red zone.
And Boiling Springs is better this year. They're playing good football. And Dorman, after Dave Gutschall, I'm third head coach now, and they'll have talent there as well. They lost a tough one to Greenwood last time out.
But Dorman, still a team you can never sleep on when they're on the calendar, certainly when you have to go into Dorman and play. Byrnes ends up getting them at home on the 13th this go-round. Goes to Boiling Springs, that team that you said is much improved on the 6th, and then to Gaffney to cap the year on the 27th, which proves to be quite a showdown. That's what many expected in the preseason, to perhaps be the region showdown, and only time will tell.
I still think Greer, tough night tonight for them, but as they get into it and they play at Lawrence, lost by 3 last year, then they've got Eastside at Wade Hampton and Riverside at home. I think they still have a very good shot in 4A Region 2.
Zy Landrum hands this off. Byrnes trying to push the pile to the mid-century mark, looking to eclipse the 50-point threshold as they knock on the door one more time. But the Rebels are turned aside as this play is stopped at the 2, and with only 10 seconds remaining, we'll see if they decide to snap it again. And picked up by Zy Landrum. You got the sense Landrum was looking over there, and he was going to wait for word of whether this thing was going to go forward. Likely not, as time was down, and you see him saying that's going to be it. But the snap, somewhat adventurous as the final seconds roll off the game clock. It was, for Byrnes, less than adventurous really from that first possession on. This is a team that flexed its muscles offensively, defensively, on special teams, and they come away with a road win tonight of 49-13.
Yeah, they took control early. They got the good kickoff return by Bomar, and then they eventually we get the 30-yard run or so from Segura to lead 7-0. That set the tone, and then a really nice 62-yard touchdown pass from Cadell Rowland to Tycorian Gist at SBAT, but 7-6 at that point, and then really took control.
And down the stretch they go to the tune of a 49-13 win. We'll break away, come back, and wrap this one. A Byrnes win, a decisive Byrnes win on the road at Greer. The night belonged to the youngsters for Byrnes. It all started with the freshman back, Trey Segura, who scored 3 times before the fans settled in good. His 21 points set the tone for what would become a 49-13 win for the Rebels. I say the night belonged to the youngsters. So many of the players fresh off JV, right, getting up.
Chance.
Don't even have the names on their back of their jerseys yet, but they were a part of this one tonight, Tom. You saw a glimpse into the future for Byrnes. What you saw from Byrnes related to the present, though, was a workmanlike effort from Andrew Stevens, his surrounding cast of Armani Weaver, Caleb Williams, of course, Bomar has to be thrown in there, Brooks. They were as advertised. Jacob Coleman, you hope he's certainly fine after departing toward the end of things. From the kicking standpoint, is a weapon. And this defense swarmed around and had a number of takeaways in the second half that were consequential. So Byrnes was Byrnes on this night at Greer.
Yeah, they have really recovered since that 17-14 loss at Chapman, where they led 14-0 in the first quarter. Turned the ball over 5 times that night. They had some opportunities in that game in the second half. Chapman won it. They turned the page, got back, and as Coach told us, had the focused and competitive nature in practices, and then come back out and win 37-14 over a good Greenville team, and then came in here ready to play tonight. And after it was 7-6, and all of the drives except one were less than 2 minutes. One of them that kind of is a microcosm was transpired within the second period of play, and it was a 93-yard drive that took 45 seconds. That's it.
Played through the intensity of the matchup before the game started with some of the, we talked about chippiness and all that. Byrnes settled in and played their game. By the way, should also mention big touchdown reception for Adonis Edwards tonight also, in addition to the efforts on defense from the likes of Weaver and, of course, Cy Landrum handling things at the quarterback position after he came on in support of Andrew Stevens, the starting quarterback for Byrnes. It just was everything you would want out of the Rebels as they take one moment to put it all in perspective before they turn their attention to the remainder of this slate, which has Region 2 5A on the horizon. There's still some work to do before you get there, but they play in that, what many term it, the SEC as of Upstate South Carolina football, as it's been for so long. The toughness that it requires, the gamut that you must run through if you're Byrnes. So this, again, just another of those get ready for what's to come moment for both these teams. You said it. We fully expect Greer to be a team that's in the mix. You know about the 3A championships along the way historically for Greer. You expect that the Jackets, when they get into the key part of the region schedule, are going to be in the conversation once again for a deep run into the playoff as well. But a night that belongs to Byrnes on so many levels. Your thoughts before we hear from the head coach of the Rebels and the trophy presentation, the Bojangles trophy presentation, which is just moments away. You think about the good work that was done by James Oates on the defensive side of the ball, and certainly on special teams with that recovery. So many images that bring to mind memorable moments for the Rebels in this one. But when you put Byrnes 2023 in perspective moving forward, what comes to mind, Tom?
I'll tell you what, I think a lot of people wondered what type of team they were going to be after they lost to Chapman. And that's no aside to Chapman, because we know the history there and Mark Hodge did, and it's tough. We've been over there to play, but I think a lot of people thought Byrnes would go over there and win that game, coming off the win over Huff in North Carolina, north of Charlotte, 24-9, but it didn't happen. And that puts everything in perspective in terms of, you can't look past. I'm not saying they look past, but you got to take one game at a time. It sounds so cliche, and even coach saying one play at a time, things like that. But after what happened last week and what happened here tonight, I think that you got to feel, if you're a Byrnes Rebels fan, you got to feel pretty good.
Victors on this night. Let's go downfield side and check in for the Bojangles trophy presentation.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Jason. This is the Coach's Corner, brought to you by Carolina Furniture Concepts. Well, Coach, first thing is first, congratulations on a magnificent victory here tonight. Your team played like champions on both sides of the ball from start to finish. What are your thoughts on the game?
Team game. All these guys worked their tail off. So proud of them, these coaches, man. They just put it in every day, and just to God be the glory.
That's outstanding, Coach. Now, obviously, we're about a third of the way through the season at this point, so it does beg the question, what can we look forward to in next week's game and beyond?
One game at a time, man. We're just focusing on us, trying to be the best version of ourselves.
I like it, Coach. Well, I think this belongs to you, so congratulations, Coach. Congratulations, team! Back to you, Tom. Back to you, Jason.
Break it down right there. Break it down on canal. Right
Go.
there.
I'm on.
Hey, Rose on two. Rose on two. We're on two.
Mama, I'm on TV, mama. Don't count.
Yes, you are. And it has been a night where they have shined in every facet of the game, in every opportunity to be on TV on this night. Byrnes just what you would expect them to be. A reminder, we got Pisgah Smoky Mountain coming up next week. And for the Byrnes Rebels, they turned their attention to Wren, you said it, West Florence, Spartanburg, Bowling Springs, Dorman, and Gaffney. That's the remainder of the way for these Rebels who are victorious in all phases on this night. A short 7-mile journey, and quite a trip from there. Led by the 3 early touchdowns from Trey Segura, who set the tone on this night. It was the Byrnes youngsters who shined. For our entire crew, thanks for joining us on Bojangles Friday Night Rivals. Until next week, have a great weekend. Enjoy the football elsewhere. Congratulations to Byrnes, 49-13 winners.
This is the